Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Los Angeles County Regional Planning Commission. Today is Wednesday, August 2nd, 2017, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led this morning by Commissioner Louie, if you will.
Good morning. If you all rise, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand on your heart and repeat. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and welcome again to everyone. It's always really wonderful and exciting to see a full house in here, so thank you for taking time out of your morning to be with us and help us understand and assess these important issues. So before we get started, I want to first of all say a special thank you to Rosie and the staff for all of the amazing hard work this morning for getting us all in here so that we're all able to listen and participate in the conversation. So thank you for all the legwork that went into making that happen. So you'll see we have agendas today. Before we dive into our agenda, however, we want to take a few moments to recognize and appreciate the incredible service and leadership of our outgoing director, Richard Bruckner. Mr. Bruckner has led this department since 2010 with unparalleled vision and leadership, resulting in enormous progress and a lot of innovation at the county and in this department. And so I'm honored to be able to present a commemoration from the Commission in recognition of your leadership this morning. And I just want to say a few words. I think, you know, your legacy is incredible and will be characterized by so much progress and innovation, I think, from the comprehensive update to our general plan, to the local coastal plan, modernizing the permit and inspection process, and everything else in between. But to me, at least, another really important part of your legacy is the people in this department. I think at the Commission, we often see projects and policies come to us when they're sort of at the end or near the end of the process, and we know that there are a lot of hard work, a lot of visioning, dedication, and work that goes into bringing these projects before us, and I'm always so impressed by the professionalism and the skill and the vision that we see coming to us. And I think that that is reflective of the culture that you've created in the department and your leadership. And so it's been an honor to work with you the last couple of years. I wish that we had more. We're going to miss you greatly. But it's also an honor to know that we'll be able to continue to work with this staff and this department, and that will continue to be a reflection of your leadership and your legacy. So thank you so much for everything you've done for the county, for this department, and I think Commissioner Schell also has a few words before we get to the photos.
Well, I do. I just want to tell you how much you're going to be missed, Richard. I think you know that. The professionalism and integrity you have brought to this department and to the county has been such a breath of fresh air for me, and I know for many other people here. Just the turnaround and the quality of work and the amount of work that's getting done, the speed with which we are moving through our cases at the Commission. It wasn't always this way. It's just, I think, a terrific place to work. It's a terrific place for us to come as volunteers and commissioners. You get all of the credit for this, and you are going to be so missed. And if for no other reason, just your wonderful personality. You're just such a lovely person to work with. I hope you will help your successor to bring he or she up to speed. I know you will. I hope we don't lose you entirely. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you.
Indeed. I don't know if I think we have some photos, but if other commissioners want to say a few words.
Just a quick comment from this commissioner. You and I have been on the regional planning about the same time. You came on board just prior to my appointment, and you have been a fabulous mentor. You've guided me and this department in the direction that it's gone and been very successful at it. I think the final product of your work, though, has been the staff, because they reflect the same high quality, detailed analysis and recommendations that you've put out. So I personally want to thank you for all the leadership you've provided.
And
I forgot to say one thing. I wanted to thank your wife, Betsy, who's here with you this morning. One thing we all know when you work in land use planning is there are so many meetings in the evenings and on the weekends. And thank you for lending your husband to us through the past 8 years, 7, 8 years of those after hours endeavors. It is much appreciated. So thank you. I'm glad you're here this morning so we could meet.
Indeed.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Richard, I wish I could say all these wonderful people out here this morning were here to bid you farewell. But at least I can say that you're going out in planning style with a room full of people. So on behalf of the department staff, it's been wonderful serving under you. Your leadership, as the commissioners have said, your integrity, your professionalism, all go without saying. It's been an honor. So thank you.
Before the photos, because after that, there's some people who I think came down for another matter. But it is always nice to play to a full house. The commissioners, you've been wonderful and supportive, thoughtful, careful in your consideration of all the cases, and very supportive of staff. So I couldn't ask for a better group of commissioners. It's been a real pleasure to work with you. In my almost 40 years of planning, this has been the tops in terms of commissions that I've worked with. So thank you for all your support. A quick thank you to a few others, because I know there's a lot of business to do. County Council and their group, and we've had several people involved from County Council. They keep us out of land use jail, and they've been wonderful, collaborative, and I think this department works with County Council as well as any department in the county, because we have mutual respect and work closely with one another. So thanks to the County Council here today, and there are many others who have worked with us, including the head of the section now, Elaine Lemke, and certainly to the staff who have been wonderful. And I don't get to do what I do without an army behind us. And every one of them are caring about the issues, cutting edge planners. And we've brought a new group of planners in who bring the same kind of dedication and thoughtfulness. So I'm very comfortable with the transition, because I know we've got a great team behind us. Dennis as chief deputy, the deputy directors, the section heads, all I think bring a true sense of professionalism and dedication to it. So I'm very confident that the traditions that we all together have set in place will continue. And again, thank you, commissioners, for your hard work, and thanks to all the staff.
Thank you. And the commissioners also want to take some photos with you. Should we go over? Yeah, let's go over here on the side.
What do you want to do this for? Here? Yes, please. One more. Thank you. Thank you. Gary has always this poll. Without a poll. Without a poll. Oh, can't leave without a poll.
And for our grand finale.
Members of the Commission, members of the public, and the department staff. An ode to Richard J. Bruckner, formerly Director of Planning and Development with the City of Pasadena for 10 years, successfully implemented much of the city's development without any fear. Joined regional planning in the year 2010 and has been a moving force in all phases of planning since then. The Renewable Energy Ordinance, the update to the Antelope Valley area-wide general plan. He's had so many success stories while here. From where does the energy come for this man? He's a truly unique director, a man for all seasons. He knows the names of all the employees and regularly visits the sections for a myriad of reasons. He's a diplomat, an ambassador of goodwill. Major law firms and developers are well aware of his expert planning and development skill. On a lighter note, we wish him well, and time will tell whether Brooks Brothers will suffer a loss from DRP losing Richard J. Bruckner as our boss.
So thank you again to everyone for those wonderful and kind words. Really important and meaningful moment to share with everyone, so thank you. With that, we are now ready to move to our regularly scheduled program. And I want to just list a couple of administrative items before we get started. We have agendas of today's proceedings located in the back of the room. These are those pink sheets. Many of you have already filled out comment cards. Thank you. If you haven't and you wish to speak before the commission, you can, staff member can help you fill out a comment card and bring it forward. Please be sure to silence your cell phones. And as a reminder, these meetings are webcast and can be viewed on the department's website if you're interested. So I think we'll get through a couple of our sort of short beginning items before we move on to the main event that everyone's here for. So I want to start with approval of our agenda.
So
I have a
moved.
motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Motion, agenda has been approved. So we'll do reports. County Council, anything this morning?
No report.
No reports. Director's reports?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to report on a couple of public hearings at the last 2 weeks of the Board of Supervisors meetings. First of all, last week, the board held a public hearing on the appeal of the conditional use permits and housing permits for the 2 affordable housing projects located in East Los Angeles at Downey and Whittier. At the close of the public hearing, the board denied the appeal and approved the project. Secondly, last week, there was a zone change and conditional use permit for the KMET Recycling Center in Rowland Heights, and consistent with your Commission's recommendation, the board approved that project as well. Lastly, yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, the board held a public hearing. They had called up for review the conditional use permit for a market that wanted to sell liquor on Vermont Avenue in the West Athens, Westmont community, and at the conclusion of that hearing, the board did approve the project, but did modify one condition and added another. The condition that was modified was the hours at which time they could sell alcohol, and that was modified to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Secondly, an additional condition was added restricting the sale of hard alcohol in containers less than 750 milliliters. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move to approval of the minutes for July 12, 2017.
So moved. Second.
Motion a second. All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 6, and we'll open the public hearing. This is project number 2015-01232, We'll begin with a staff report, but as Mr. Jones is getting set up, I want to just go over some ground rules and how this is going to play out. So generally in these hearings, first we hear from staff. We'll give a presentation and overview of the project. Following that presentation, we'll then hear from the applicant. The applicant will have 15 minutes to present their project, how they wish to do so, and then we open it up to hear from the public, from the community. Sometimes when there's an organization that represents a large number of individual stakeholders or constituents, we can allow that organization to have a little extra time to present a video with the idea that it's sort of, rather than individuals speaking, it's an opportunity to present a cohesive message on behalf of the organization. So if some individuals fill out a card and give up their time to allow for that video. So we have such a request this morning from the United Homeowners Association to present that video. It's a 6-minute video. We are going to allow that video to be shown. Everyone else who wishes to speak may do so if you fill out a comment card. We, at this moment, I believe, have over 70 comment cards, which is excellent and wonderful, and we want to hear from everybody who wishes to speak. However, in order to make sure that everyone does have that opportunity to speak, we're going to give 2 minutes per comment. So if you can try to plan accordingly and try to have your comments and share your thoughts and your ideas and your concerns in 2 minutes, that would be excellent. Of course, if someone else comes forward and says what you were going to say very eloquently and persuasively, you're welcome to not speak if you so wish. You don't have to come forward, but of course, anyone who wishes to speak may do so and can come forward. You might hear somebody say something that you really agree with and you think is really great, and you might even have the impulse or the instinct to clap or applaud. I understand that. However, it's difficult sometimes when that occurs for the rest of us, for the commission, for your neighbors to sort of hear what's going on. So I'd like to ask that in such a case, if you could try to do, maybe raise the roof or do one of these, something to convey your appreciation, your agreement without too much noise disruption. We, I believe, are able to accommodate everyone in this room. In the event that some other folks show up, looks like we're at pretty near capacity, so we may need to have people in an overflow room outside if that does occur. Of course, if you are outside, you are still welcome and able to provide comments to the commission. You can fill out a comment card. We'll make sure that when we call your name, we go out there and bring you in, and we'll do our best to make sure that everyone that's here gets the opportunity to speak and to share their thoughts. So that's the general public comment period. After that occurs, then the applicant will be invited back up and they'll have a 10-minute period, a rebuttal period, to address any concerns that may have been raised. And then we'll move on to commission discussion. So that's the basic sort of process that we're going to go through today. Appreciate everyone being here. Appreciate your patience as we do our best to make sure that we hear from everybody and to sort of play by these basic rules. So thank you again. Unless I've missed anything important.
I was just thinking we might want to set a cutoff time of which point we stop taking speaker cards for this item.
That's a good point. So I want to make sure, sometimes I understand it's Los Angeles, traffic is difficult, sometimes people can't be here right at the starting time. So why don't we say 9:45, we'll cut off. So if you have a friend that you think was going to try to be here that isn't, maybe shoot them a text, see what's up, and we're gonna accept comment cards until about 9:45. But then at that point, we're gonna have to cut it off so that we can make sure that we can get through everything today and hear everyone who took time out of their day to come talk to us. So 9:45 is the cutoff time for comment cards. Otherwise, looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts, ideas, concerns, and visions. So with that, I think we're ready to begin with our staff report. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. My name is Stephen Jones. I'm a Principal Regional Planning Assistant in the Land Division section. First off, this morning's information packet contains clarifications of the applicant's offering for middle income units. The applicant offered 5% of 140% of the AMI, which is middle income, and staff requested 10% of the units be 140% AMI, which is again middle income. And your findings and conditions have been clarified and updated to reflect consistency there. There's also additional comment letters in this morning's packet, and I'm still getting phone buzzes about emails. It's not my Twitter feed. I'm still getting emails about this project. So agenda item number 6 is project number R 2015-01232, vesting tentative track map number 073082 and conditional use permit number 2015-00052. The applicant is requesting authorization to create a multifamily residence lot developed with 88 attached single-family residence units within one building, a residential project known as The View. The project is located within the View Park Zone District, and the current project was filed April 28, 2015, including a plan amendment, zone change, and conditional use permit. After the November 2015 effective date of the 2035 general plan update, the plan amendment and zone change were withdrawn. The plan update and zoning consistency actions made the site general commercial and zone C1 restricted business. The project is consistent with the 0 to 50 dwelling units per acre of the CG land use designation. The project requests modifications for height and front yard setback via the conditional use permit to assist meeting the county's regional housing needs assessment provisions of the general plan housing element. Residential use in a commercial zone also requires approval of the conditional use permit. A provision in the conditional use permit section of Title 22 gives the Commission authority to specify modified zone regulations. An initial study was conducted to determine whether or not the project would have a significant impact on the environment and allowed staff to conclude that a mitigated negative declaration was the appropriate documentation for SEQA requirements. State and county jurisdiction agencies commented on the project's proposed impact. The South Coast Air Quality Management District commented that the draft document used the 2012 AQMP, where the 2016 plan adopted March 3, 2017, should have been used. As of the writing of the draft initial study, the 2016 AQMP was not adopted. Since that time, staff requested an air quality analysis and GHG analysis from the applicant's consultant who provided the document in which the 2016 AQMP was used. In a late letter received from SCAQMD, the Air Quality District recommended that the air quality analysis be required by mitigation measure 3.2 be conducted, prepared, and analyzed as part of the draft initial study prior to your action on this project. Since the subject mitigation measure is required and monitored by County Public Health, the Department of Regional Planning felt that the prior to issuance of grading permit was an acceptable time and prior action is not required at this time. So the measure is sufficient as it stands. Other comments on the initial study were regarding the number and type of units addressed in one section of the document, which read 56 detached units, and how the View Park Historic District was not mentioned. The document has been corrected to reflect the 88 proposed number of attached units, and the staff report and the document both read that the site is not in the View Park Historic District. However, the View Park Historic District is nearby. The document and staff report also read that the height varies from 58 feet to 65 feet 1 inch. The correct maximum height from natural grade is a proposed 64 feet 9 inches. The subdivision committee cleared a vesting tentative tract map for hearing, deeming that the tentative map met all applicable Subdivision Map Act regulations. The vesting tentative tract map depicts one multifamily lot with a building pad that covers greater than 50% of the site, with the entire site being graded. Access is proposed from Overhill Drive. The site is currently vacant and was previously unsecured, where dumping of refuse and cast-off items, construction material, and trash was observed, but the applicants sent evidence of cleanup via photos. As seen from Overhill Drive, here in the rendering, the proposed structure is shown to be 59 feet 11 inches. From La Brea Avenue, the proposed structure is shown to be 64 feet 9 inches. Public comments included air quality concerns, traffic, and the proposal being out of character with the existing surrounding development due to the proposed height and the density. Calls were received with concern about emergency evacuations, fatalities from vehicles cutting through the detached single-family residence neighborhood, and the effect of the project on the View Park Historic District. In conclusion, we recommend approval of the project based on the number of units meeting RENA. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I know you mentioned it, but can you just clarify real quickly the department's response to the AQMD letter? So I understand that they were hoping that the MND would assess consistency or compliance with the 2006 AQMP, or 2016.
Yes.
And we have an assessment and evaluation that does, in fact, do that and can be included.
That's correct.
Okay.
The draft initial study initially included a 2012
Right.
AQMP, but that was changed late, but it was changed, and the applicant did use the 2016 AQMP in their air quality and GHG analysis.
So in that respect, it's responsive to the AQMD concerns in the letter. Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions of staff at this time?
Mr. Jones, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, thank you very much. I know that this is, in some ways, turned out to be a career working on this project, so you've done excellent work, and it's much appreciated. Walk me through the thinking as far as the height of the project. Typically, we look at variances of 2, 3, 4, 5 feet. Here we're looking at 30 feet.
Right.
And one of the findings that we conclude, or potentially conclude from the commission standpoint, that it does not materially affect the community around it.
Right.
Talk to me how you get there.
This property is an edge property. Tangentially speaking, it's the edge or the border of the View Park Zone District and the Ladera Heights area. So we looked at it as though, since it's on the edge, the 35 feet in the commercial zone was not a huge difference in that it's meeting, our basic premise was that it's meeting the regional housing needs assessment with 88 units in light of the housing crisis. So being that it's on the edge of the district, staff concurred that the burden of proof was met.
So the justification is the need for additional housing.
Yes.
There is oil drilling going on in the area, yes?
Yes.
And in evaluating the seismic issues, that was taken into consideration, I'm sure.
It was. Department of Public Works and the fire department have cleared the map, and they would be required to meet the county building code, which addresses earthquake faults. And the Department of Public Health has asked for an air quality analysis regarding the oil well and the drilling in the area.
I look at the fracking as being sort of a dynamic, changing situation. Was that taken into consideration?
Fracking was not taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions of staff at this time? Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, I do. It's along the same lines of the height. I'm trying to understand, and it's a little hard for me to read on the plans, but from La Brea, is the basement there, it's not underground is that correct?
It would be subterranean.
It is subterranean at La Brea, because I'm trying to understand in the view simulations.
Correct. It's below natural grade. So they're digging and taking out, but so it's below natural grade is the correct term.
Okay, because there's some parts where a height is shown in our burden of proof on the view simulation. Well, number 7 shows 76 feet.
Mm-hmm. So that is taken into consideration the partially subterranean. It's subterranean from Overhill, and it is seen from La Brea, so that's why I say it's below natural grade, and that 76 feet includes the below natural grade height.
Okay, because it's perhaps one of the applicants that they can, or the architect can give me a better understanding. I'm trying to understand if the height, because of the slope, if what we have at La Brea is higher than the 65 feet,
right?
What's being shown above ground.
Yes, so what's visible definitely is the 76 feet, and staff measurement as far as our maximum height is concerned, even though it's obviously over the maximum height, we only take from natural grade as the actual.
But what's visible is up to 76 feet?
Will be 76 feet from La Brea.
Fine, thank you.
I just want to follow up on a question Commissioner Louis asked you about the fracking.
Yes,
Why wasn't that considered?
not in our code, so we only looked at what the regulations were from Title 22 and the building code, and I could defer to Public Works if there's more information about that they could provide.
Can you address that, Public Works?
We don't have any specific information regarding the fracking part of this. If there was any concern, our geotechnical requirements would require the consultant to address it at the building permit stage during design. Obviously, with the seismic part of it also would be addressed through the building code requirements.
Thank you. No other questions?
Thank you. I have some questions, and I think we'll all probably have additional questions, but perhaps we want to hear from the applicant and the public, and then we'll reconvene. So thank you very much. At this point, I want to bring the applicant forward to give their presentation, and I also want to take this opportunity as they're coming forward to swear everyone in. So if you filled out a comment card, and if you plan to speak on this item today, or even if you didn't fill out a comment card but think you might want to speak on this item, we want to be able to swear you in. So if you could please stand if you're able. And raise your right hand.
They're going to have you sit here as well.
No, I need to. Where's the flash drive?
Oh, it's on the desktop.
And I want to make sure we get the applicant as well while they're simultaneously dealing with technical issues. So, all right. Do you and each of you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony...
You're going to swear it too.
We'll start over. Do you and each of you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you may give in the matter now pending before this commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Excellent. Thank you all. So welcome. As the applicant, you'll have 15 minutes to speak to us, show a video, how you want to use it. You'll have a little clock in front of you, so it'll count down from 15. The green light will go on when you begin, yellow light when there's about 30 seconds left, and then the red light when it's time to wrap up. And if you could both state your name for the record and then go ahead and begin. Welcome.
Starlet Quarles.
I'm Charles Quarles. Instead of a presentation, we're going to show a video, but I'd like to say good morning to all of you, and thank you.
Good morning.
Wrong one?
Oh.
Yeah. Didn't look familiar. Different beginning.
Yeah.
Don't start the clock.
We paused your time, don't worry.
Lost 4 seconds already. Huh?
You can reclaim your time. Thank you, Commissioner Louie. Good, excellent reminder. If you recall, we implemented a cutoff time for comment cards. So we've reached our 9:45 deadline. So this is the last call for comment cards. Anyone who wishes to speak, you'll have 2 minutes. Please get your cards in right now. Otherwise, we're going to cut off comment cards.
And just to be clear, we're cutting off for public hearing and the item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Charles Quarles, president of the Bedford Group, and we're developing the project on Overhill.
Project
Is there some
contains
volume?
a myriad of great features that I think is going to make it very attractive to the homeowner there.
There'll be lots of amenities there. We'll have
Beautiful outdoor swimming pool with views to the west that are going to be very, very sought after.
rec room
a gym.
This building is brand new, luxury. It's a fabulous investment.
Located in View Park, right at the apex of Overhill and La Brea.
There's a view that we have glass windows on that edge, and we could see the ocean.
And so the condominiums that we're bringing would cater to people who are accustomed to living in a bit of luxury and who have the income to be able to purchase luxury.
Building values, increasing values.
Buildings like this, where we are providing jobs and ownership, is helping with property taxes, which helps our schools.
Full of quality materials, quality amenities.
And so our quality, we will have the kind of quality on the exterior and interior where we have granite countertops.
Larger living areas, more expansive rooms throughout the unit, and very generous outdoor living decks.
It gives you commanding views of the entire city practically, so it's a great location with
panoramic view to die for.
Which I think will be a great asset to those units.
I love the luxury.
We would also include amenities that have attracted buyers to those other communities, and we should have those in our community too, so we put them in our project.
There's not too many, very few luxury condominiums in this community.
We want to provide a lifestyle and the quality that people can be proud of.
These are higher quality units. They're a little larger than what you normally find in a project like this.
It has a barbecue, a countertop, restrooms, pool equipment enclosed, so it's not going to be any noise in the area.
There's no need to leave the site to experience some great casual living.
Affordability and luxury are not always hand in hand.
We didn't think because it's in View Park or in what's considered a black neighborhood that the quality should be any less. We deserve as much as anyone else.
Square footage is more luxurious.
It gives you pride.
And the kind that they would experience if they lived in some of the more upscale areas.
Well, let's say better than any Beverly Hills or Hollywood.
They're going to be priced in the low fours, and some will reach up as high as $700,000.
A regular house in this area, the houses are probably close to $1 million.
And single-family homes are more expensive than a condominium.
We want, people who can, reasonably afford to be in the area, to be in the area.
Our project is only going to add to the value of the existing homes that are already located in View Park.
I see a new wave of young people coming in with their children.
Young professionals primarily, and empty nesters.
Even people who are downsizing.
But many people that I know would be clamoring for the opportunity.
When it came down to settling down and raising a family, it's a place I chose.
Central area of Los Angeles.
It has those coastal breezes.
Close to the beach, close to the airport, and really close to downtown even.
One of the best places in Los Angeles, some of the best views, some of the best people.
Well, this is a community I love, and I'll be here.
And I live in Ladera, so this area I've been around all my life.
I think there's some places in our area that can be developed if they're developed smart.
What has happened in this community, if we wanted something that was luxury or quality, we would have to leave to go to Beverly Hills.
There was a large African American population that, saw the need to move away.
We have not the best grocery stores. We don't have the best healthy choices at our restaurants. But that is changing, and I see some development happening, and I'm excited about that.
But if it's a positive change, people end up embracing it.
But we're reviving now, and I'm very proud.
Things do change, and I've learned to embrace change.
The Bedford Group would create a very distinct opportunity for people that just don't have a way of moving back into the city.
In fact, we have a lot of developments happening. We have the Metro light rail.
And there's a lot of vitalization. Kaiser's building a new hospital in the area.
We have the Rams coming in. A lot of developments and jobs are being brought with that.
There's growth all up and down Crenshaw right now with the rail line coming in.
With Los Angeles expecting to grow from 10 million to 13 million people by 2030.
Many services and amenities are coming back into the community. However, we still have a ways to go.
There were no African Americans here, and people left, and we came in and established a foothold, and that was a change that was destined to happen.
But change is inevitable. It's going to happen. And this is the type of change that I'd like to see.
The assumption is that projects are going to come, whether we like them or not.
But you can't stop change.
So that's just the process of life.
And I really like that we have luxury buildings coming into this community. It's been needed for a long time.
If we can maintain that, more power to us. If we can't maintain it, change is going to come.
The Bedford Group has done amazing work around the Santa Rosalia area.
Produced a better product, and they took pride in what they put here.
You know, I don't know a lot of African American developers doing projects in the area.
Well, I know there are not a lot of African American developers, period.
So as a developer, I get pleasure from being able to do that in the community in which I live.
He actually cared what was put here.
It gave me great pleasure to be able to develop the kind of housing that we could take pride in our own neighborhood.
This is a local developer. He built this. This is ours. It's not somebody giving to us.
In some way, upgrading the community, well, it brings you pleasure, particularly if you're a developer.
The family lives in the area. I know they've invested in the area.
Because I actually live in that particular community, and we've done a number of projects in that community.
Bedford Group is almost a household name in this community.
We used Quimby funds, which is it's basically a mitigation fund that's created by developers like the Bedford Group.
We care about where we build, we care about what we build, and we care about who we build for.
You know, offset any mitigation issues, they provide funding for parks and open space.
So they've been very good to work with.
We develop in other communities also, but I got particular pleasure from being able to develop in the community in which I live and a community in which catered primarily to black people. Well, we did an extensive shadow study, and the building is so far northward that there's never any shadow cast in any property.
Henceforth, it is impossible for a project to the north of the residential portion to cast any shadows whatsoever on the residential yards or homes at all. It's just physically impossible for those shadows to reach the home. So this site cannot cast a single shadow into anybody's yards or homes. It's just not going to happen with the solar orientation that the site experiences.
The sun, when it comes eastward, it goes southward, and there's never a shadow cast on anybody's property. We're very careful in terms of our design and the placement of the building to ensure that we didn't impact any views.
The views are at the south, and they're also at the west and east. Okay, and there's no view to the north.
This property, as it sits, is already on the northern side of the residential neighborhood.
The view that people have that live on Honor-Crest right now is primarily of the commercial area that's directly north.
There's no view to the north, so the residential community are not losing a view with this project.
We pushed our building all the way northward, and we made sure that we protected and preserved the views of the ocean that any people that live on Honor-Crest would have.
It's just not there because they don't have the view going up the hill anyway.
There are only 6 homes there that had any kind of view at all, and those views are still intact.
My name is Dwayne Newell, and I'm a realtor here in LA. I love to hear that the Bedford Group is black-owned, it's part of the community, it's community-based. The developer, we got a black developer representing the community, and it's even aspirations for me, because I want to become an architect, a developer, deal with the developers, construction.
I live at the Bedford Promenade for 6 strong years. LA is a melting pot, and the neighborhoods that represent that, are neighborhoods that are going to have opportunities with better retailers and things of that nature. Property values will increase. I mean, it's nothing but positive news when you see a face that doesn't look like yours walking through the street. It's just a sense of greater community, and it's one of the reasons why I moved to LA.
Projects like this right here in the community where there's not a lot of space to grow allows for younger people, millennials, people in their early 30s, early 40s to be able to purchase something. If they're not looking for specifically maybe a house, they can move into one of these lovely condominiums. It's just not what we're used to around here. Most people are used to single-family homes, certain square footage, and a certain layout. And when you say they're going to add something, you know, a lot of people who've been here for a long time, they just don't see how that works with what they're used to. New property doesn't move people out of the community. People selling their homes move people out of the community. If it's a place that you see that's good and you want to be there, don't sell your home. Don't move, improve. Stick around. I mean, you look at Venice Beach and Santa Monica, they weren't always nice neighborhoods. At one point, they were really considered seedy, druggy areas. And what happened was a lot of those hippies and hipsters and artists who lived there stuck around, and they became wealthy through real estate.
In this area for 45 years. I've been living here in the condo for 8 years. I was one of the first 11 people to buy in this area. I think they're doing a very good job keeping people in this area, building condos. They can move from apartment to a condo and they won't have to leave and go to another area. So I don't think anybody would be against nobody in this area building something. I don't understand. They need to think about it, and they should be happy to have a new condo being built in this area.
And when I saw this place, the Bedford Promenade, I liked it immediately. That the builders live right in the community. It shows that they have confidence in the area. My son lives not too far from here, so I had him. And we come from New York, the Bronx, New York.
And I saw when the condos were being built, and after they were built, one day on my lunch break, I decided to come on by and take a look at them, and I fell in love with them. Businesses, you know, want to come in, and that actually makes my property value go up. So I like that part of it I do like. I've never heard of a developer living in the area in which they've developed, but to know that Mr. Quarles and his family literally live around the corner. I mean, when I go walk through the neighborhood, through the hills, I walk by, you know, his home all the time. We are homeowners, and we have pride, and we take pride in our area and in our properties. They were going to have, you know, the views of the ocean. I said, Darren, you put me on that list.
My son saw it going up, and he kept telling me, Mom, they're building this, Mom, they're building that. And so I did come and check it out. It's very touching and inspiring to me to know that the building was built by a black company, the Bedford Group. Darren, of course, was honcho down there, and he kept us informed as to what all was going on and how things were. The majority is black, and I think the minority might be the Caucasian people. I hear that the property values have gone up, but I don't care how high they go, I'm not leaving. But things have changed, but it's still a great neighborhood. And I don't think you can stop progress no matter what. And I had lived in New York all my life, and someone said, what is it you saw? I said, white people walking in Harlem. And not in a prejudiced way am I saying that, but it's something that Harlem used to be wall-to-wall black people. But things have changed. People are living wherever they choose to live. So a lot of things have changed.
The Bedford Group has done amazing work around the Santa Rosalia area.
Produced a better product, and they took pride in what they put here.
It has to be considered a unique animal in this area because a lot of African American developers, I don't know a lot of African American developers doing projects in the area.
Well, I know there are not a lot of African American developers, period.
He actually cared what was put here.
The family lives in the area. I know they've invested in the area.
This is a local developer. He built this. This is ours. It's not somebody giving to us.
Bedford Group is almost a household name in this community.
They have to live on the same streets as everybody else, and they have to shop at the same stores as everybody else. We have a mitigation fund that's created by developers like the Bedford Group that do development in the area, and to help the community, offset any mitigation issues, they provide funding for parks and open space.
So they've been very good to work with.
I mean, the community is underserved as it is.
Oh.
The housing stock is old. And so when you're able to do affordable housing, the type of housing, you have a sense of what the community needs. And we tended to do primarily multifamily housing, so that's what we did. We knew that the housing, since it was affordable, that provided a community service.
Thank you very much for that video. So I'd like to see if we have any questions of the applicant at this time. Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Schell? Oh. Okay, well, seeing none, we will be inviting you back up later after we hear from the public, so I'm sure we'll have some additional questions at that point, but thank you for sharing the video.
I promise, no more video.
Thank you. So next, we're going to move to general public comment. However, I think it's appropriate to take a quick, short 5-minute break, recess, before we move on to that phase of the hearing. So we're going to come back at 10:10, everyone, and move into our general public comment. So thank you. Ready? Welcome back, everyone. Thank you, everyone. If we can come back and take our seats, and we can get moving. Thank you all. We're about ready to reconvene here and get started. Thank you very much. Welcome back. We're moving now into our general public comment. Well, not general public comment on this item. And so we're going to call out some names. If you hear your name called, you can come to the front. We are going to allow 3 minutes per speaker. However, we have a large number of speaker cards, so I would encourage you, if you don't need to take the full 3 minutes if you don't need it. If you can summarize your comments very concisely and eloquently, that would be much appreciated. You will have 3 minutes, and we'll get through and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak to us. So if we could call the first few names, and you can come forward if you hear your name called.
Yes, the first speaker is John Heath. And then I will call up the names of the 3 individuals who would like to cede their time for the video that you had mentioned earlier. That'll be Thomas Day, Joyce Vaughn, and May Heath.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner, just trying to get the video prompt. Thank you.
All right. Welcome. You'll have 3 minutes. If you could state your name for the record before you begin, and same drill with the clock. It'll tell you how much time you have. Green light when you begin, yellow light when about 30 seconds left, and red light when it's time to wrap up. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm John Heath, President of United Homeowners Association 2, which represents the 11,000 plus residents of Windsor Hills, View Park, and View Heights, some of whom are here today with us in response to this dangerous proposal that violates our community norms and standards. I live on Olympiad Drive in View Park and grew up on Southridge Avenue in Windsor Hills. And most of our residents are here today for one reason, and one reason only, because we love and care about our community. Please juxtapose that fact against the profit-based motivations of other real estate professionals and the developer supporters in the audience as you listen and weigh your decision today. We oppose this. Sorry about that. I needed some background music. Sorry. Let me move the keyboard so that doesn't happen again. We oppose this project not just because it is too tall, too dense, and too dangerous to be built as proposed, but also because of the surreptitious way that zoning and land use changes were made via the 2035 General Plan update to help the developer and hurt the community. As you know, this site has a long history of overly dense development proposals that we stopped. In fact, the November 99 DRP zoning study refers to the 1991 rezoning of this site from C3 to CPD in response to, quote, a constant onslaught of development proposals that are incompatible with the neighborhood character of the View Park community, close quote. The 99 study also concluded that many physical constraints and potential environmental impacts that affect this site and other nearby parcels on Overhill and Stocker dictate that any development project in this area must be, quote, must be subject to carefully drawn conditions and public comment, close quote. A key physical constraint affecting this property cited in that study was the design of the Stocker-La Brea Overhill intersection for high-speed traffic with limited turns. Putting an 88-unit condo project just feet from this intersection with high speed going southbound on Overhill is a recipe for disaster. A key question that must be answered as you deliberate today, considering DRP staff's own conclusions in that 99 study and the history of our community's opposition to overly dense development on this site, why did the county allow this site to be rezoned and its base density to be increased tenfold back in 2015 through the general plan update without a properly noticed public hearing? We believe this violates County Code Section 22.16.14, which provides, quote, in all cases where a zone change or amendment is initiated, the Commission shall hold a public hearing and shall give notice of such public hearing pursuant to the procedure provided by Part 4 of Chapter 22.60. As you can imagine, our community is outraged at this breach of law and policy, and we ask you to reject the developer's application on this basis to avoid setting a bad precedent. And let me hurry through the rest of my comments here. We don't think that the developer has met its CUP burden of proof. In closing, we'd like to see something get built here that is consistent with the surrounding community, complementary to adjacent properties, and that won't add to the current traffic nightmare. Who agrees with me in the audience that this project should be opposed by a show of hands? The audience speaks for itself. I'd like to go ahead and press play on the video if you don't mind, since it looks like I'm at the end of my time. And these are residents that live directly adjacent to the project site, just so you know.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. And this is a place where when we were kids, we used to drive up and say, wow, that'd be nice to live over there. And here I am.
You know, this neighborhood is like a diamond in the rough. A lot of people don't even know about.
I just love this neighborhood. Great people.
It is part of the old Los Angeles.
My favorite thing about this neighborhood is the people.
When I came from New York, I came to this area and I like what I saw.
It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's pleasant, it's safe.
Everybody has one commonality. They, share value.
Helpful neighbors. Can't beat it.
It's pretty quiet, it's cozy.
It's super quiet, and that's really the reason why that really sold me on wanting to move here.
Neighbors were really warm, the views were beautiful.
I think this community is almost perfect.
And it's just a great place to raise a family.
One of my biggest concerns is the fact that this project, this 88 condominium, 5-story, high-rise condominium complex would absolutely compromise the integrity of our beautiful community.
This developer proposal is for the 65-foot structure. It's an 88-unit building.
It's not what we signed up for. It's not the neighborhood that we bought into.
The development is very close to the Inglewood fault line. We're right across from the oil fields, and many people in Windsor Hills and View Park have already experienced tremendous devastation to their homes, their foundation, their swimming pools and everything, and people are spending double-digit thousands of dollars to get these repairs, and it's just unthinkable. Talking about the subterranean parking going down 30, 40 feet into the ground to build parking is just unimaginable. It's very, very scary.
We've spent $30,000 fixing our foundation, and it's still not completely fixed.
I'm really concerned about damage to my property. I'm concerned about my wall cracking. It's just a massive project for that area, for it to be so close to housing.
The noise factor is going to go off the roof.
Our street and our area is very quiet.
We want to be able to continue to hear the birds when they're singing.
There will be no birds.
A lot of us that live in this community have fantastic views. And I would not want to have my view blocked, and I would not block the view of my neighbor.
I won't lose a view, but my neighbors will lose a view.
Such a huge development is going to block so many people's views.
It's going to get rid of my view.
And this building is basically going to destroy them.
I'm directly behind the project. As I see it, my view will be taken away from me, and that was one of the things that sold me on purchasing this property up here anyway, was the view. Another thing is that having 88 homes to be looking down on my property that means that I can't go out there and sunbathe anymore. In the nude.
It's going to impact traffic greatly just based on how cars are entering and exiting the complex.
The traffic, which is going to be off the chart, it's going to be ridiculous.
There's going to be a lot more traffic in the area.
The traffic, I think is going to be a very increased amount of traffic in this area.
The traffic will instantly triple.
It's going to impact the traffic. You know, getting around LA is difficult enough as it is.
With this proposed 88-unit development, times 2 cars, that's like almost 190 more cars going places in the morning and stuff. That's unthinkable. It's going to be a traffic nightmare.
The traffic, with 88 new residential homes being placed over there, the traffic would be snarled to the point where it would affect our police, fire, and ambulance services that have to travel in our area.
My big fear is that once that door opens, everybody else is going to say, I can build higher.
5 stories, it's so out of harmony with our neighborhood. They're just muscling in on all the wonderful things about our neighborhood, and they're going to destroy that.
And I feel like if they build this 5-story, 88-unit complex, it would be ripping apart my identity and my community, which is really important to me.
This development could turn our lives upside down.
I'm not opposed to them building something on the property, but just not something that big and dwarfing everything and causing the congestion I feel that's going to happen in the area.
We're not anti-development. What we are in favor of is smart development, and this is a high-risk development in our community that we are opposed to.
I'm totally opposed to this particular project that they have going on now.
When I say I'm going home, it means I'm going home.
We want to see our kids here, maybe their kids here, and so on. So we're not going anywhere.
Not planning to go anywhere.
I want to stay here forever.
I'm not going anywhere. This is where I'm probably going to end up dying.
Please do not change our neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
The next 4 speakers are Jim Corbett, Alicia Molizan-Smith, Catherine Coddles, and Joanne Fountain.
I had a question for you.
Great. So if you heard your name called, you can make your way to the front. We do, I think, have a question from Commissioner Moon.
John, how you doing? Good seeing you.
Good,
again.
Commissioner Moon. How are you?
Good. You said you think that 2035 plan was adopted to help the developers. Is that right? Did I hear you say that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
2035 plan. What'd you say about the 2035 plan?
The zoning and land use designation on this site was altered as part of the 2035 general plan update without any notice or feedback from our community. That's our concern.
None at all. You got no?
No, sir. No one. Did anyone in this room get any notification of that? So that's a big concern.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask staff to address that later on. You want to address that now or what?
I can say that the 2035 general plan is a 30-year in the making update, and for the general plan consistency as far as zoning, property owners were notified, the property owners of the zone change. But the general plan update, again, has been in the making for 30 years, and there were several community meetings that were held in individual areas.
And Commissioner, if I could, just as you can tell from the robust response to this proposal, if you think that we would not have been here had we known that this was happening as part of that general plan update, you're sadly mistaken. We were not notified that this particular project site was going to have its zoning change and the density move from 5 dwelling units per acre to 50. That's a 10-fold increase. So the important point for you all to consider, and maybe County Council as well, is when that was done, there was this application was pending. So essentially you have a request for a zone change and a general plan amendment that was taken out of that application process and done in a different process without any public hearing. That's our contention and that's our concern.
The general plan update was done through multiple public hearings. It came before your commission. It went before the board several occasions, and it was publicly noticed. It did not, there were, I don't know, someone from the general plan team is here. I don't know how many zone changes there were. There were multiple zone changes.
Want to invite Tina up?
Yeah, let's invite, we actually have someone here.
Tina Fong, principal planner.
And just, wait, I'll finish this point, then you can come in with the numbers. For this project, it's still a discretionary project. So there are certain projects through other zone changes in the general plan update that are now by right, that will not come back to you. This did allow for greater density, but it still does not allow this project by right, which is why the public hearing is before you today.
Thank you for that clarification. And yeah, I think maybe we want to hear from advanced planning and just sort of the process that went into the general plan update and how it, I think, to Commissioner Moon's question, how does it relate to an application that may have been pending?
Tina Fong, again, with General Plan Housing Section. I do want to clarify a few things. So first of all, this is a county-wide effort, or this was. So we are talking about looking at 5-digit number parcels throughout the county. It's all the unincorporated areas that did not have either area plan or community plan. So in terms of public hearing notices for the general plan update, countywide we sent out over 16,000 hearing notices. And specifically for the zone changes, we sent out over 8,500 courtesy notices to property owners whose properties were being proposed to be rezoned in the process. The second thing I do want to clarify is the timeline, the sequence of events. The general plan, as Stephen mentioned, went through a 20 years, if you will, process. Specifically for the zone change, the courtesy letters that I mentioned, they were sent out to property owners whose property were being rezoned in fall 2013. And the general plan was, as our county council mentioned, went through a series of hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. The board approved the general plan in March 2015, and I believe this application didn't come in until April of 2015. Eventually, the board adopted the general plan in October 2015. So this project was actually submitted in between when the board already approved it, closed the public hearing, approved it, and before the board finally adopted it after county council's review.
So at the first hearing, just to be clear, because this confuses a lot of people, they indicate their intent to approve. It's not approved until the second hearing.
And so just to close the loop on that, so there was an intent to approve the general plan update, then there was an application, then the general plan update was adopted, and at some point the general plan, the initial application included a general plan amendment and a zone change, correct? And then that was dropped as a result of the new adopted general plan, which had changed the use, the underlying use category.
So when the application for this particular project was submitted, the board actually already closed the public hearing and indicated their intent to approve the general plan and the related zone changes. So as I mentioned, we worked on these maps during or even before 2013. So this particular project was never as part of the consideration by the staff. The methodology, in terms of the methodology, in the general plan, because like I mentioned, it's very general, we only have one pretty much land use destination for commercial, which is the CG land use category. We use the CG land use category to map all the commercial zoned properties in all the unincorporated areas that are in the urban areas. And in the CG land use category, we do have the allowable density, which is a range. So it's from 0 to 50 unit per acre. 50 unit per acre is the maximum. And as Jill mentioned, because the zone is a commercial zone, any residential use is subject to public hearing process. And so that, as part of that discretionary process, that is when the decision maker will determine whether the project should be built at that maximum. But from the general plan point of view, because it's such a macro view, any densities that is within 0 to 50 unit per acre is considered being consistent with that allowable density in the general plan land use category.
Great, thank you for that explanation and some of the history. Do we have any other questions along those lines?
Thank you, Commissioner. If I could, just really quickly, all I know is for 40 plus years that site was zoned C3. It was changed in 1999 to CPD, and the density was reduced specifically because of this concern. And then and your own staff in 1999 talked specifically about these sites around Stocker and Overhill not being suitable for this type of intense development. And then all of a sudden, the density gets upzoned without, as far as I'm concerned, notice. The developer is requesting a zone change and a general plan amendment, and all of a sudden something's not right with that picture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're ready to hear from the next folks whose names were called. So again, if your name was called, feel free to come forward. First two folks, feel free to take a seat up at the front and move through. Thank you. And just a reminder to folks, we actually have 3 chairs up here in the front. So if your name is called and you see one of those 3 chairs empty, feel free to fill it, and we'll go from there. Okay. So welcome, and please state your name for the record, and you can begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alicia Molizan-Smith, and this is Mr. James Corbett. And he is one of the many elders in this room representing Windsor Hills and View Park. He's asked that I read his testimony. It's about a minute. So, good morning. My name is James Corbett, and I live at 5134 Honeycrest Drive in Windsor Hills. I am 89 years old and have lived at this residence for more than half my life, over 53 years. Today I am appealing to you with an urgent protest against the Bedford Group project at 5105 Overhill Drive, literally feet away from my property. To give you a historical frame of reference, we fought and defeated this same development project over a decade ago. I was involved with the United Homeowners Association, who took this battle to County Supervisor Yvonne Braithwaite-Burke's office and successfully proved that this project was detrimental to our hillside community. Most of my neighbors who spearheaded this fight have gone on to be with the Lord, but they left a document, a 1999 memo that was authored and written by your very own LA County Regional Planning Office, establishing the need to protect the Stocker corridor from incompatible, crouching development like the Bedford Group project due to traffic concerns, seismic fault line danger, infrastructure density, and noise. We believe it was a foreshadowing protection document for what we're seeing today. Unfortunately, the only thing that has changed today is that the situation has worsened, not gotten better. Today, the Bedford Group is seeking approval to build 88 condo units, an increase of units than the plan was 13 years ago. Why? How? The lot hasn't changed in size. Now they're looking at squeezing more units in the same space that Supervisor Braithwaite-Burke agreed would not enhance our community, but rather take away from our beautiful Windsor Hills View Park hillside community known for its views. The infrastructure is worse today, not better. It's older, it's strained, and I've noticed more blackouts and electrical failures in recent years, not to mention water lines breaking throughout the neighborhood with runaway water streaming down Overhill Drive. One of our neighbors in our block had a California American water line break on the hill, causing a deluge of water to run in their backyard and flood their pool with red clay, murky water, and debris. The entire backyard was ruined, and the water company worked on their property until 1 o'clock in the morning, borrowing their electricity to repair the worn-out pipeline that caused this damage. I'm a retired engineer. The seismic earthquake fault line activity is real and serious in our neighborhood. Nearby oil field fracking and water pressure drilling have only worsened the ground raising situation, leaving us with structural foundation damage and sizable cracks. Deep digging to build a 5-story high-rise condo complex, including 3 levels of underground parking, would be a dangerous, destructive encroachment to our neighborhood and community. I still drive, and the traffic congestion would be a nightmare to residents as well as parents dropping off their children to the neighborhood elementary school, Windsor Hills Magnet School. I ask you to take these issues and concerns seriously and stop this project from being approved. I've lived in this community for half a century, and I know when a disaster waiting to happen is on the horizon. That's exactly what this project is, a disaster and a threat to our community. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Corbett, for being here. And I noticed some of you waving silently in agreement, and I appreciate that and would like to encourage others to try to do the same rather than applause so that we can make sure to hear everyone. So thank you again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments.
So now if I can share my testimony. Again, my name is Alicia Mollison-Smith, and I live at 5146 Honor-Crest Drive in Windsor Hills. My husband and I have been residents there for 29 years. We raised our family in this neighborhood. I'm here to oppose the Bedford Group's View project, which is poised to be located adjacent to our property, approximately 50 feet from our backyard, looking like a prison wall. We fought and defeated the same developer 13 years ago, as Mr. Corbett shared, but here we are again with the same issues of concern, only today it's exacerbated concern. One of my biggest concerns with this project is the seismic earthquake fault line. I'm not a geologist or a scientist, but I've lived in this neighborhood long enough to realize we live in a vulnerable ground-moving area because of the Newport-Inglewood fault. We've actually had a geologist come out to our neighborhood and admit that many of our homes would not have been built today based on the laws and regulations on the book. Our community took a brutal beating from the oil field across the street during their aggressive fracking period. In the summer of 2012, we saw ground movement rise up and erupt on our block, higher than a speed bump, and travel across Overhill and into our elementary school's playground. Public Works was in our neighborhood almost daily, attempting to level the bump and address the problem. The problem was a finger fault, which is called a graben. The graben had begun to raise up, we believe due to fracking, since there was no significant earthquake activity during this period. 2 bungalows at Windsor Hills Magnet Elementary School had to be removed because they were housed on top of the graben or finger fault. Today, the bump is back on our street and on Overhill. I've talked to parents at the elementary school who are frightened about sinkholes in the playground that are constantly being filled by maintenance workers. We can't ignore that something is going on under our ground, and it needs to be addressed. An 88-unit, 5-story condominium complex with 3 levels of subterranean parking located directly across the street from the school is a dangerous, calculated risk. The digging and excavation alone could reveal hidden grabens as well as toxic gases. Per the Elquist-Priolo Act of 1972, a property cannot be built within 50 feet of an active fault line. While the View building is not within 50 feet of an active fault line, we do know that there's a visible graben that runs through the entrance of the property. We were able to create an overlay of the satellite image of the earthquake fault line along with this visible graben over the actual View building plans. We will email the superimposed image to each of you. This is way too close for comfort. Everyone who lives in Los Angeles knows, according to seismologists, that we are way overdue for a massive earthquake. If a dense building like this was constructed with 88 units in a squeezed-in environment with only one way out, gridlock alone would be catastrophic. I was born and raised in New Orleans, and I'm very familiar with the catastrophe that hit my hometown, Hurricane Katrina. What's unthinkable is that the worst natural disaster in the history of our nation, which resulted in over 1,000 lives lost and thousands of homes destroyed due to flooding, could have been significantly mitigated. It wasn't the Katrina winds that caused this horrific damage. By the time the hurricane hit New Orleans, it had lessened from a level 5 to a level 3. It wasn't even the waters of the Mississippi River or Lake Pontchartrain. It was the 3 levees that run like arteries in the Crescent City that broke, leaving a sea of destruction, caused by a screw-up as well as a cover-up on the part of a government agency, the Army Corps of Engineers.
Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're over your 3 minutes pretty significantly, so if you could just give one concluding thought, and then we can move to the next person. Thank you.
Got it. Absolutely.
I know it's a short 3 minutes. I apologize.
Absolutely. I understand. The other catastrophe that we experienced was the 1963 Baldwin Hills Dam, another situation that could have been severely mitigated by government agency that represent us. So in closing, I would just like to say, commissioners, please don't ignore us. We represent voters, we represent donors, and we represent a community of people who have made vast contributions to making Los Angeles great through our combined talents, our time, and our treasure in the community of Windsor Hills and View Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for you. You say you're 50 feet from the site?
Our backyard is approximately 50 feet from the building of the site. Yes.
So you one of the 6 houses? I've been on that site several times.
Yes.
You one of those 6 houses?
Yes, I am.
All right, I know it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon.
Thank you both for your comments this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Joanne Fountain, and we purchased our home at 5102 Honor-Crest Drive in Windsor Hills in 1984. We live just south of the proposed site of the View, and I'm vehemently opposed to this project for several reasons. The project will cause increased traffic congestion on Overhill, Slauson, La Brea, Northridge, and other nearby streets, and make the left turn from Overhill onto Northridge, which I personally make sometimes twice a day, a much more dangerous turn. Finally, the encroachment of this development on the open space amenities in our community must be considered. While we know that the developer has the right to build on his property, we're simply asking that they observe the current requirements, such as the 35-foot height limit, and be considerate and respectful of their neighbors when deciding what to build. No one in our community wants a development that's going to destroy our environment because the county refused to impose reasonable limits or conditions on the developer. Since we live in a densely populated and congested city that all too often causes our tension and stresses to rise, I would like to make a special appeal that you consider the value of requiring the developer to conform with the open space theme that impacts this entire area and require that they incorporate some type of publicly accessible open space that can be enjoyed by all the residents of Windsor Hills View Park and the additional new residents of the condominiums. We are not opposed to growth and development, but lack of open green space has a well-reported effect on public health. According to the Trust for Public Land Parks Space Score, LA scored just 15 out of 40 possible points on access to parks, compared to 40 out of 40 for San Francisco. Even before the current rush toward greater density, LA has always been park poor. LA's 2017 park score is only 41.5 out of 100, making us 74th out of 100 in U.S. urban areas. We need to preserve, protect, and expand the existing park and open space amenities that we already have, including those open spaces immediately adjacent to the View. Commissioners, as one of the residents who is going to be directly impacted by this out-of-scale development, I'm requesting that you vote against approving this project. Please listen to the voices of thousands of your constituents and vote in favor of what is right for our long-standing historic community. We implore you to seriously consider all the reasons we oppose this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Catherine Coddles, and I've lived in View Park for 50 years. I've raised my family there, and I still live there with my husband, and we enjoy the peace and quiet of the neighborhood. One of the things that I'm vigorously opposed to about this project is the 65-foot height, and most particularly the fact that there is only one exit from the project, and that is a right turn that moves southward on Overhill. What happens there is that the traffic moving southward would, without a doubt, turn on Northridge and travel through the residential neighborhoods. It will come through View Park, and people already are beginning to speed through there, and it has reached the point where we want it to stop. Enough is enough, and we can't really tolerate more cars. There'll be about 184 parking spaces in the condo building for residents. And we just can't accommodate that many cars in the neighborhood. The peace and quiet will go, the safety and health of the residents. The Bedford Group and the traffic engineer recognizes that this will be a problem for the residential area. So they are planning a two-way left turn out of the project. But the problem there is on an outreach video, Mr. Quarles states that possibly in a year or so that this two-way left turn lanes will be established there. Well, in a year or so, that means that the neighborhood has to absorb all of this terrible traffic, and we just cannot afford it. Besides, I've spoken to supervisors from Public Works and many people there, and they say that the developer has to fund that project. But I also learned that if he's given the time of a year or so, that he's completely done with the project. They can't hold him to it. So who has to pay for it? Yeah. The taxpayers will be paying for it, and that is terribly unjust. So I'm asking, in the review, it says that in the report it says that it has to be done, but it's not written out clearly. It's not spelled out, and I'm asking you to spell this out in the report that prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy of the first unit, applicant shall provide widening of Overhill Drive and striping of a two-way left turn lane from the project frontage onto Overhill Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next four speakers are Dolly Harris, Anya Hayes, Hope Williams, and Tony McDonald Tabor.
Thank you. If you heard your name called, please come forward. And the first three to get up here can feel free to take these three front seats. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Welcome.
Hi.
State your name for the record, and you can begin.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. My name is Dolly Harris. Good morning. I am a resident of Windsor Hills, and I have owned my home for almost 35 years, which is located only yards away from the proposed project, The View. All of the homes within the area surrounded by Overhill on the east, La Brea on the west, and Slauson on the south are one and two-story single-family homes. I am opposed to this 5-story, 88-unit housing project with 3 levels of parking called The View, which would ironically block the views of several of my neighbors and ruin the serenity of a quiet and peaceful neighborhood with single-family homes. My concern is that most of the homes in Windsor Hills were built in the 1940s, and that means our infrastructure is basically 80 years old, which includes the electrical wiring, the underground gas, water, and sewer lines. As homeowners, we are responsible for maintaining all of our gas and water lines on our property. However, our sewer line responsibility extends from underneath our homes to the middle of the street. The 88-unit, 5-story project will have to be linked to our 80-year-old infrastructure. The Bible tells us in Matthew, 9th chapter, 17th verse, what happens when you pour new wine into old wineskins. The wineskins burst, the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. Replacing a sewer line can cost anywhere from $12,000 to $50,000, depending on how much of the line you have to replace and how deep the plumber has to dig, which could be down to 25 feet, and this cost is not covered by insurance. Many of the residents in Windsor Hills are elderly with fixed incomes. Many are young couples with small children, and others have children in college. To incur a cost of this magnitude for a new sewer line as a result of The View, connecting a sewer line that will accommodate 88 additional families would be devastating for our 80-year-old sewer lines and catastrophic for the residents of Windsor Hills. The residents of Windsor Hills are experiencing instances of low water pressure and scheduled and unscheduled power outages. In December 2016, we experienced an unscheduled power outage on a very cold night. This year alone, we have had scheduled power outages on June 26th and on July 18th, an unscheduled power outage from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and to make matters worse, 1 hour later, another 30-minute unscheduled power outage. My belief that a 5-story 88-unit project would overburden our 80-year-old infrastructure, invade the privacy of our 1- and 2-story homes with our fenced backyards, and have an overall adverse effect on the quality of life for the residents of Windsor Hills.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I see you have a little bit more. Unfortunately, we're at our 3 minutes. If you could just summarize your one final thought, and then we want to make sure we can hear everybody.
One final sentence. Our singular stories bring attention to a bigger problem.
Thank you. And if you have those comments written, you're welcome to submit them, and they would be entered into the record if you're interested. But we also heard what you had to say and appreciate it. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, good morning. My name is Hope Williams. I'm a recent resident of the Windsor Hills, the Onacrest Drive. I live at 5130 Onacrest Drive, and I'm opposed to the project at 51 Overhill in Los Angeles as it stands. I live directly behind the project. My lot is number 13, and when they stated in the video that they would not obstruct my view, I would suggest that they stand in my backyard and tell me that they will not obstruct my view. My view is of Santa Monica, Hollywood, and the downtown area. The views that they're talking about giving their clients or the proposed people that they're going to sell to is the view that they're taking away from me. So, with that being said, some of the other stuff that I talked about in my statement have already been covered: the traffic, the congestion, the compromise of my house when they build down into the parking structure, or however they have to build to go up on the high rise for the 88 units and the over the 65 feet high has been addressed. My privacy is one where I don't sunbathe, but if I wanted to, I won't be able to now because the property does look to my backyard. Their pool area is almost directly behind me. And I'm really not opposed to progress because I think with any society, growth is important. But I do think that they have to take into consideration that the people that purchase there purchase for the community that we have, which is very quiet. You notice that on our video, everybody talked about how quiet and cozy the area is, and that is very important. This is my forever home. I just recently retired. I'm 60 years old, and I don't plan on going anywhere. But I do want my quality of life to be sustained. I know that they talk about the Quarles living in the community, and I know that I've been to their home. They have a lovely home, but there's nothing obstructing their view. There's nothing impeding on their privacy. And with that being said, I think that they should take into consideration what's going to be happening to us who are in the community. I invite any one of you on the council, on the board, and even the project, the Quarles, to come stand in my backyard and then tell me that you're not obstructing my view.
Thank you.
Good
Welcome.
morning. My name is Anya Hayes, and my daughter behind me is Sasha. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my opposition to the view development. I am an 8-year resident of Windsor Hills, and I would like to speak to you specifically not just as a homeowner, but as a representative of the hundreds and thousands of local and county residents that use the trails and parks that surround the proposed development. The location surrounding the development has been an area that the county, its citizens, and partners have invested in heavily over the last decade. The Park to Playa project was completed this year with the completion of the trailhead at the corner of Stocker and Overhill. This Park to Playa project was created to connect the parks, trails, and open spaces of the area. And then there's the related investment the county made in Reuben Ingold Park and the Stocker Corridor project, which was, to quote the Planning Commission, an investment in the well-being of the community. I and hundreds of local residents use the track at Reuben Ingold Park every day. This track is special because of its views. The proposed development would block the southwesterly view to the ocean that we now enjoy from the walking track. From the new trailhead at Stocker and Overhill, the open space view and feel that is increasingly hard to find in the Los Angeles area would be permanently altered, spoiled. For what? The greed of developers seeking an exemption to the current height limit? Lastly, I want to speak up for the current and future children of Windsor Hills Elementary, who obviously are not here to voice their opinion today and are not residents of the area necessarily. Their only view of the ocean would be taken away. How many schools in Los Angeles have an open view to the ocean? How do you value this? Their answer is you can't put a price tag on it. Need I point out the irony of the proposed development being called a view to them? And I want to also point out that in the presentation that the developer gave, they showed that the shadows that would be cast, and if you look carefully, you will see that shadow encroaches onto the school ground. So obviously showing that their view will be blocked and they will have a shadow. The money the developers will make from seeking an exemption to the height limit and constructing an out-of-scale development could never be justification for taking away the views and open space character from residents, visitors, and school children in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tony McDonald-Tabor, Vice President of UHA2. I have been a resident of the Windsor Hills community for over 40 years. This body has heard testimony opposing this project from residents that are directly impacted for a variety of reasons. The Bedford Group has stated the View project would be an upgrade, an asset to our community, and that this project provides some relief to the Los Angeles housing shortage. Our response to both of these assertions are, one, the Windsor Hills View Park communities are currently and have always been affluent communities. The only asset our community is in need of is a revitalized commercial corridor. Two, regarding this project being the answer to the housing crisis in Los Angeles, what homeless demographic qualifies for condominiums in the price range of $400,000 to $700,000? The real issue is the developer making a return on his investment. period. The community members' issues, however, are those of concern related to the project's sustainability, height, density, impact on traffic hazards, and increased congestion, the proximity of the project to an active earthquake fault, and the project's obstruction of views enjoyed by longtime residents of the area. Apparently, the developer finds these same views crucial to this project because its most unique selling point, as described on the developer's website, video, and brochure, are the location's views, and I quote, "The view offers breathtaking views and spectacular views," close quote. The Windsor Hills View Park community has always been known as a view community. Our neighbors have always relied on the county to enforce our uniform 35-foot height restriction that has historically protected our community from this type of development that would obstruct those views, and to enforce safety guidelines designed to protect our residents and their families from potential risks such as this project. We know the staff reports a finding of less than a significant impact regarding the seismic issue, but as you have heard from our community members, especially those neighbors adjacent to the proposed project who are already dealing with structural damage to their property from seismic activity, there is overwhelming fear and concern over potential construction and excavation so close to this moving fault line. The staff position appears to be, if we don't see an immediate threat, then a threat does not exist. I would ask you now to reflect back on our neighbor Alicia Malazan-Smith's testimony of her family's and the other resident fears of the levee breaches and the subsequent Katrina tragedy and also the Baldwin Hills Dam. Any reasonable individual faced with a decision like each of you faces today, after being reminded of these two tragic events and the possible negligence of the officials in New Orleans, should base their decision on the side of caution. In addition, I remind you of the County General Plan Guiding Principles 4, the county's commitment to minimize risk and discourage development in areas that are prone to safety hazards such as earthquakes, floods, and wildfires. The principles and goals were set forth in this document to guide your decision-making process. This project is not consistent with this principle, and if there were ever a time when the principle needs to be applied, that time is now. We appeal to your sense of justice, your duty to our community, and your responsibility to your positions on this commission to carefully weigh the significant concerns communicated to you by our community members against the profits of this one developer and vote against approving this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next four speakers are Darren Gooden, Charles Favors, Charles Covington, and Craig Quoro.
Thank you. If you heard your name called and you still wish to speak, come forward and we can fill in these three front chairs. Welcome. If you state your name for the record, and you can go ahead and begin.
Excuse me. Yes. Thank you for today. My name is Darren Gooden, and I will ask all the commissioners to take a look at the people in the room today. I guess another question will be asked, take a look at who's not in the room today, who's not represented. We talked about a generation, but my generation hasn't been spoken about. I represent the working middle class individuals that live in this community, and I couldn't be here today. Why? Because we're starting our families, we're just taking care of our families, we're just starting our careers, and some of us are recently out of college. So I represent that community, and although we're not here in numbers, we might be sprinkled throughout this room today. There's not entry-level housing in this community for ownership opportunity, not 60 years of leasing opportunities, ownership opportunities. Homes in this neighborhood are over $1 million. You need $400,000 cash to buy into this neighborhood. Lenders only lend up to $636,000. So what about my generation that's been displaced, that's being pushed out of this neighborhood that we grew up in? We should have an opportunity to buy back into our community, and this development offers that. Now, yes, I'm with the applicant. I work with the applicant, but I'm also a member of this community, and a lot of people have been texting me. People have even left here today because they go back to work, and they can't be here to vocalize their support for this development. We've submitted over 300 petitions to support this development, and what we're doing is providing home ownership opportunities for our generation. And what we can do with this development and condos that we purchase is leverage that into one of those homes to buying a home later down the road, because the ability to save money in this economy cannot outpace the appreciation in this neighborhood or in LA, period. And so we just don't have those opportunities, and we should demand more housing opportunities like this in our community. where we can buy something that has value, something that's luxury. Most of the developers who try to build in different neighborhoods, they build boxes, 600, 500 square feet boxes. These condos start at 1,300 square feet for a one bedroom. That's larger than 2 bedrooms in luxury neighborhoods, Beverly Hills, Culver City, Playa Vista, Silicon Beach, and we're going all the way up to 2,500 square feet. We're having hybrids of a house and a condo that we're delivering to a market, to a demographic like myself of young professionals that want this. And we're seeking these type of housing opportunities, but it's not here. We have to compete with people who are already at their peak. Most of the people who spoke today are already retired. They already own their home. They bought their homes years ago. And you heard them. They're not leaving. They're not moving. They're going to die in their home. So where do we go? See, they're pushing us out. So a housing opportunity like this allows us to stay in our community in which we was raised.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask folks to please avoid interrupting our speakers. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to tell us what they feel, think, and want to see. And so if you could please avoid interrupting when other folks are speaking, that would be really great and help us have a productive conversation. So thank you in advance for that. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. My name is Craig Kuro. I live on Seacrest Drive in Windsor Hills, which is just down the street from the proposed development. Most things I was going to say has been very well said by my fellow neighbors. So just on that fact, what the gentleman had just said about people buying into the neighborhood, one thing that's not being addressed is these new neighbors, it's going to take them a long time just to go from their work to the new development as it does me. I leave my home to drop my daughter off to school, come back to the house, and start my commute. I used to leave at 7:30, but now that's gone back. Just in the last year and a half, I have to leave at 6:50 to make it up Slauson. And if there's ever any a traffic light out, or it takes like an hour and a half to get up there. That's not every day, but it's quite often. So I just wanted to say that new people coming into the neighborhood will experience very difficult traffic, and it's going to impact all of the residents who are living here. Also, I'd like to just take a moment to read this. We and our families before us chose to settle and invest in Windsor Hills View Park because of the beautiful homes and the unique tranquility for predominantly single-family homes. The environment of the View Park, Windsor Hills, Baldwin Hills area. The Baldwin Hills area is as a whole, truly unlike anywhere else in Los Angeles. And the intersection and danger of development is a focal point of that uniqueness. With the lack of park and open space in the surrounding areas, this is the one area, this is the one area that provides not only a beautiful location for physical activity, but also is a visual open space conducive with the park settings. While walking or even sitting in one's vehicle at the light, waiting to pass beyond this special place, it's the hills, the trees, and the openness that one focuses on and enables one to truly appreciate this unique location. This is here for us. My family has lived within a mile of this location for over 70 years, and it is my wish that 70 years from now, my descendants will be able to enjoy the same open location as we do today. Yes, there are commercial buildings in this location, but being only single-story structures, they do not overpower the natural setting as mentioned above. Should the View project go forward as proposed, tens of thousands of local residents will be denied the unique urban nature setting that is this intersection and its surrounding parks. And as a replacement, the focal point would then be the commanding structure of the 5-story condo complex. It will become their view and my view.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Good morning. My name is Charles Covington. I reside at 5157 Braycrest Drive. This house has been in my family's care since 1965. I've come and gone from the community. Well, the speaker before last just got me a little frazzled here, but the community's always been there. It's gone through traditional changes, just like any other developed community in the Los Angeles area. I mean, it depends on the value. I think this project is going to devalue our community, if anything, not appreciate it. It's if you can see here, the before and afters. If we have vacant lots all in our throughout our community, some of them have challenges, some of them don't. I personally have worked in the regulatory commission building department for over 10 years, not in this community, but another community. So I have experience dealing with developers and contractors and the developer type. And let's say they're primarily looking for their capital gain. And their capital gain is not going to be our neighborhood's loss. So as you can see here, the building is very close to residents. I mean, yes, they pushed it as far north as they could, but that doesn't really alleviate the problem of it encroaching into our neighborhood just south of it. As you can see here, it's estimated the height of their building, but that you get the view of them looking down in our neighborhood. And how can you tell me that that's not going to diminish our quality of life? I don't know how you can say that. I walk up this hill every day with my dog, and that's the view I'm going to have. This is Honeycrest going north. You're going to tell me that type of intrusion is not going to be detrimental? I've never seen that. There's a reason why we have a 35-foot height limit, and that's so that things like this don't come up and intrude into your neighborhood. Like I said, I've had over 10 years experience dealing with this, and I've gone to school for design, so I know what I'm talking about. It's not that I feel this is going to be detriment. I know it is. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Last call for Charles Favors, and I'll call the next four speakers as well. Johnny Sharp, Brian Herbert, Jesse McLennan, and Harold Washington.
Welcome. First three folks who make their way to the front can have a seat. You can sit right up here in the front. Yeah, welcome. So either one of you can go first, but please state your name for the record, and you can begin. Welcome.
Johnny Sharp. Good morning, commissioners. I'm here today. I have a real estate background, so I have sympathy for everybody on both sides of the fence. So let's just start there. We know progress is going to happen regardless to whether we stop it or we move forward with it. It's going to happen. So that's the first part of my statement. It was mentioned earlier about 5 stories being a high rise. That's incorrect. 5 stories is actually a low rise. That's my first point. The second point I'd like to make, that in the area, we mentioned that the houses are at $1 million and above. So if we're looking to build affordable housing to allow others into the community, we do have to open the door for a little bit lower priced housing of a quality nature. I am an advocate for veterans. I love veterans. Now, I understand, I like to applaud the Bedford Group for allowing a 5% moderate housing. I believe this gentleman stated that was increased to 10%. Now, with that in mind, if that's the case, that means an increased allowability for veterans to actually live in these types of houses. So I applaud this with all open arms. Thank you, gentlemen and women. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Louie?
Just for clarification.
Sir? Excuse me, sir. I think we actually have a question from Commissioner Louie, if you don't mind.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yes.
You mentioned the 5% versus 10%, and I just wanted clarification. Is one of the conditions that's been agreed to a 10% commitment to the 140% income?
It is. So we're requesting 10% for middle income, 140% of the area median income.
So that has been agreed to by the...
It has not been agreed to. That's what staff has requested. The applicant offered 5% of the middle income, which is 140% AMI.
And for my clarification, 140%, would you translate that into what that means as far as an income level?
Income levels? I could not at this point. I need to see. I can look at our website and let you know. I don't know what the exact number is.
Thank you.
I actually have, and I will hope to revisit this a little bit later, have some similar questions along those lines. So if between now and when we get back to a conversation, if we could try to have that information about what those income levels are. We don't necessarily need an answer now, but 140% AMI is, I think, what we're talking about, or what has been sort of proposed. I'd love to hear, do we even do that in the county? I mean, I know that at the state level, HCD, we cap it 120%, which is what we call moderate income. And so I think hopefully we can have a conversation about exactly what is on the table in terms of the affordability when we get there. I also do want to make sure we hear from other folks as well. But I think Commissioner Louis poses a really important question to get clarity about what we're even talking about from an affordability standpoint. So thank you.
Good point. 5% is obviously acceptable, but 10% would be even better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Jessie Louise McLennan, and I live in the house that my parents bought 54 years ago this month. So I'm a longtime resident of View Park. And almost ever since I can remember, the issue of safety, pedestrian safety on Overhill, has been a concern in the community. And it's grown over the years as traffic on Overhill has increased and as more pedestrians have appeared to take advantage of mostly the walking, the other projects of the county. And we were all very, very happy to see the county commit to a revitalization project of Overhill. There is supposedly a pedestrian and bike plan in the works, on the slate to be implemented. So it's kind of surprising to me to then read that what we're proposing here is something that is going to create a massive traffic problem on Overhill when we thought we were moving in the other direction. I read this environmental impact, and Section 17 on transportation is filled with misrepresentations, specifically points D and E, when they talk about whether it's going to substantially increase hazards. Well, there's no way that it cannot. You cannot have, I'm going to do a minimum of 88 cars pouring out of an apartment complex onto Overhill, which is already part of a known grid problem from the westbound Slauson problem. We can't, it's not really understandable to me how these people are going to get anywhere without disrupting the residential roads, primarily Northridge, roads that were not engineered to be transit routes. They're residential streets. And there's also a lot of conflicting information, because in this thing it says that there will be no significant changes are previewed, and then it said, well, we're really going to make it possible because we're going to put another lane in the middle, a left-hand turn lane in the middle of Overhill. My point is, I don't believe this. I don't think that there was really an adequate traffic study done. And I think this is something that we're going to look back on. This is another one of those things where you ask, well, did anybody actually look at the traffic before they allowed these people to build this? Because by the time it's built, it's too late. So at the very least, I would object. I think that this ought to be shelved and to get an actual traffic study by the Department of Public Works. They're planning to put in a pedestrian and bikeway, and then we're going to talk about, I heard the developer say, well, they're going to widen it for more vehicles, and that's not what I understood. And I think that my time is up.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello, my
Welcome,
name
sir.
is Harold Washington, and I have personally had business dealings with Mr. Quarles through my father, Harold Washington. And Mr. Quarles, I still have difficulty in dealing with him as a developer. He still have yet to follow a court order, which is one thing. But the fracking that is going on in our neighborhood, also, they talk about the Inglewood fault, but yet there's the San Andreas fault and the La Puente fault that has yet to go off yet. And the ingress and egress, each one of y'all took out your pen. The ingress and egress is only going south. And all the traffic right now is bottlenecked. We live on Valley Ridge. And if you turn left on North Ridge to Valley Ridge, we have tremendous traffic, especially when the children come back to school. I asked the Highway Patrol to be here too. I like for you guys to get an impact study from the Highway Patrol, but we constantly having accidents in and around North Ridge, Valley Ridge, North Ridge to the south, North Ridge to the west also, because if they turn out North Ridge to the west, we have La Brea, and if they want to go out of La Brea, going south, they'll be unable to because of the traffic flow. That's a big thing. I don't believe, he put in here a misnomer, I don't believe that Quarles owned Bedford Park anymore. It went bankrupt. And in saying that, the lady asked about a certificate of occupancy before it's completed. That's definitely what we need. And he also talked about the blighted area is blighted because he hasn't cleaned up the trash that's already on the property. So I disagree, and I wholeheartedly am against this project because of the children and at Windsor Hills community. We've been in that area over 50 years. My mother has a business there. My children, grandchildren all went there. And this would be a travesty if this man is allowed to build this project.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Brian Herbert. And I'm a resident in Windsor Hills. I just recently purchased a home right off of Northridge on a street called Innadale. So I'm not as affected as directly by the people across the street, but I welcome the development. I think, I've been living in this area in the Baldwin Vista side, and my whole family in the Dimes and View Park. I bought my first home in View Park, and we sold it, and we moved up the hill, just that was our dream. My wife attended Windsor Hills Elementary Magnet. I went to Baldwin Hills Magnet. And I just, at the age and the stage of my life right now, I feel like our neighborhood is overlooked in the development process. And I believe that interest in developing our area it's exciting for me. I see it going on in every area surrounding my neighborhood. So, I just really, I think the Bedford Group, I've taken notice. I've seen them build projects, Santa Rosalia and on Stocker. And, when people mention traffic, I drive past these properties often, multiple times a day. And they have even more units than the proposed property, and there's not cars coming in and out of there where I can't drive past, or children are at risk of being hit and stuff like that. I mean, there's normal everyday traffic from these properties, and I don't even see cars coming in and out. I look over at them because recently, I've just seen it, but it's normal traffic that I've seen any other place in Los Angeles or surrounding areas. I think it's a little. I come home, right? I use Slauson, I use Overhill, I use La Brea, and I understand everybody's concern too. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that their concerns aren't valid. I just believe that what we do in our area is adapt to what's going on, and I believe that this is another project that we'll be able to adapt to and appreciate in the future. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I've got a question.
Sir? Sorry, we have a question from Commissioner Louie, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Yes, and actually, it's sort of a follow-up. You had mentioned the traffic congestion caused by the current developments that Mr. Quarles has done. Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones?
Yes, I apologize.
How are you?
I'm well.
Okay. Question for you. The property is zoned to commercial zoning.
It is, C1, restricted business.
And if a retail development was done on the property, yes, approximately how many square feet could be developed?
The square footage would depend, but because of the height regulation and the setback, that would determine. So you could do up to 90% of the property developed. 10% would need to be landscape. So it really varies.
So the dirt area is 130,000 square feet approximately?
Approximately, yes. So if you take the acre.
And so just roughly, how many square feet of retail could you develop on the site?
Let's see. I can tell you right now.
I was hoping so.
And some math on the fly.
A little over 72,000 square feet.
And the county requires 5 per 1,000 parking?
5 for 250. So for every 250 square feet, one space. So yes, 5 for
4 per 1,000 then. Mm-hmm. And so how many parking stalls would that be? 4 times 7?
About 288.
288 parking stalls.
Mm-hmm. And so that 72,000 square feet would encompass all that.
Right. So 288?
Yes.
Parking stalls.
Correct.
From your experience, 288 commercially parked cars on that site, would that generate more than 88 residential units? Would that generate more traffic?
Parking for 88 is less than 190. So, yes, 288 cars versus 190.
Okay. Thank you. So my point is that if the property by right was developed out for commercial purposes, the impact would be greater with the commercial property on there.
It could be
retail.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we call the next round of speakers, I think we're past due for our hourly break. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back and hear from more folks. So thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. If we can start to take our seats, please, we can reconvene. Thank you all for being here, for sticking it out with us. We're going to continue with our public comment. I do just want to give a quick note. We're running up on almost noon already. We have a large number of comment cards still remaining to get through. We certainly want to make sure that we hear everyone who wants to speak before the commission. At the same time, at some point, we're at risk of commissioners needing to leave, and we risk losing a quorum. So I just want to let you know that there's that risk, and so we do want to get through all of the cards, and everyone that filled out a comment card, we want to make sure you have an opportunity to speak. But given that sort of constraint we have, if you feel like someone has already said what you wanted to say in an articulate and concise way, you don't have to use your full 3 minutes. You're welcome to, of course, but you don't have to use your full 3 minutes. You can pass even if you feel like your comment has already been made. It's not required. We're not asking you to do that, but just offering up that option given sort of the constraints that we're facing with time. But we definitely want to make sure we hear everybody and have this important conversation. So thanks for your understanding and your patience with that. And I think we can call up the next few names.
Next 4 speakers are Bethany Whitley, Henry Woods, Nolan Rollins, and Philip Hart.
Great. If you heard your name called, feel free to come and take these seats. You can state your name for the record and then begin. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Bethany Whitley, and I'm Crystal Whitley.
Welcome.
I happen to be a part of that generation who technically needs to be at work, so I appreciate you guys moving me up on the list. I was actually the last person that was supposed to speak, so thank you for that. First, I'd just like to start off by saying it's super admirable that a community like this could show up for itself. And that is part of what makes View Park this affluent African-American community. Second, though, is the fact that while it is that, as a young Black woman, you know, finding ways to integrate myself into that, to start my life, I'm navigating my career and my life here in Los Angeles, and it is, my friends, it's so hard to start, whether you're going to buy something, whether you're leasing, it's so hard to do that, let alone to move into a community where that's not offered. So I think I'm super in favor of it. I do believe that all regulations should be considered, and the traffic in LA is the traffic in LA. You know, it's like, you know, we make do with what it is. It's annoying, but we figure it out. And this is just going to be one of those situations that will have to be figured out. Yes, it should be safe, and I'm all for safety, but it's one of those things that's inevitable here. So that being said, I think that it would offer so much for the in-between middle class, especially the entry-level, you know, couples that are just trying to start their lives, to have an opportunity to move into this neighborhood, to continue what they have started. Because what's going to happen is 20 years, you know, from now, these people might not be here, and then how do we move into that, you know, area, you know, if we're not already starting it? How do we continue this legacy if it's not given to the new millennial to have the opportunity to continue it forward? And I think that this development will allow for that. Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. You have anything to say? No. We have time. Do we have time? Also, we also are proud members of the, we live in the Santa Rosalita, and we moved here, you know, we graduated college and grad school and moved here and, you know, found an opportunity
to be able to live in this area.
Yes, and buy. I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry.
So, you know, a lot of our friends who, you know, who missed that boat, you know, they're all struggling in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills and, you know, only wishing that they could have, you know, gotten to a situation where they're not like literally losing their minds to pay thousands of dollars in rent. So again, this would afford that opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. My name is Dr. Philip Hart. I'm here to speak in support of the project. I've known Chuck Quarles at the Bedford Group for many years, and I consider him to be a responsible real estate developer and also one who resides in the community where this project is proposed. Chuck and the Bedford Group, I was a project manager for the West Angeles Cathedral, which was dedicated in April of 2001. Chuck and the Bedford Group worked closely with me in Turner Construction and Langdon Wilson Architects and Bishop Blake to build the West Angeles Cathedral, which, as we all know, is a institution along the Crenshaw corridor. I also want to applaud all those that have showed up today, whether you're in support or not in support of this project, because it's a good lesson in civic participation, and this particular community is very active in that regard. I am also a transit advocate, and I work at communities throughout Los Angeles and throughout the nation. And developments like this, always the issue of traffic, congestion, and density arise. I was appointed by Supervisor Yvonne Brathwaite-Burke to the Urban Design Committee of the Expo line in 2006, and I'm proud to see that that's the most popular line in Metro right now. I'm a member of the Urban Land Institute and chaired the panel that looked at the Crenshaw line, building the Crenshaw line to the airport, which hopefully people who live in View Park, Windsor Hills will be able to take advantage of that line soon as well. The Urban Land Institute also worked with your outgoing CEO, Richard Bruckner, in Pasadena. Starlet Quarles worked with me on a ULI panel to look at housing policy and business development in Pasadena. And earlier, one of the speakers who was opposed to the project made reference to Katrina in New Orleans. In 2005, as a member of Urban Land Institute, we were asked to come in to help rebuild New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. And due to our work, the levees were rebuilt so that a catastrophe like that could not happen before. In terms of open space, I'm also a founder of the Friends of Hollywood Central Park. And we found a creative way in Hollywood to build a freeway over the 101, a park over the 101 freeway, which would encourage View Park, Windsor Hill residents to examine. But the bottom line is that I think this project is a benefit to View Park, Windsor Hills, and I support the commission, approving the project and moving forward with the Bedford Group, whom I regard as responsible to both their business acumen and in terms of the community that they represent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nolan Rollins, and I'm the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Urban League, and we are here to support the Bedford Group. We do definitely understand and listen to and hear the concerns which we believe are being mitigated at each turn, and I think that there are negotiations there to be had. At the same time, we actually think that this is an opportunity, an economic development opportunity, that we can ensure that there are real job opportunities here in Los Angeles and the region for the people of color, for people who actually need job opportunities, that there's a real opportunity for people to actually live in Los Angeles. There was a conversation about New Orleans a minute ago, and I will tell you as the former CEO of the Urban League in New Orleans post-Katrina that New Orleans in a large respect is being rebuilt without New Orleanians being considered. And the concern for me is that if we aren't really smart about how we're developing our communities right now and providing a space for people who are in that mid-level income area, they will never be able to live there. They will never be able to have an opportunity. So we're going to have large things built like the train in the area. We're going to have things like Kaiser being built in the area. But we will not have the people who actually should be in there. And that's people who are living here and from here and who can afford to be in there. So we do enthusiastically support this, but we support it for a reason that we've got to be smart about economic development and actually be able to have developers who we can say that what's important in your development is not just what you build, but it's how you build it. It's who builds it. It's who's going to live in it. And most importantly, how we can talk about the impact that this is going to have positively on the economy of people, ensuring that there's opportunity to put food on the table, opportunity to put our children through school, and at the same time creating a safe housing environment for them. So we do believe that there are challenges that are being worked through now, but at the same time, we do think that there's a very smart way to look at what this opportunity actually provides for people who are here, people who need housing, so that we don't have an outward migration of those who are in the middle class, an outward migration of those who are in those people of color, any more than we've already had to this point. We need an inward migration of people in the middle class and people of color and stop the bleeding that's actually happening right now. We think that this is a part of the solution. This is not the whole solution, but I think smart development is a part of the solution, and we believe that that's what we're seeing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Henry Woods.
You got 1 minute.
Thank the Commission for allowing me to speak here. First of all, I'd like to say I used to live in the community on Don Lorenzo. I bought a condo there years ago. Since that time, I came here when I was 22. I'm now 63.
I'm sorry, yeah.
I came here when I was 22. I'm now 63 years old. I now live across the street at 800 West 1st Street. I've been there over 15 years with a condo in Bunker Hill Tower condominiums. I love to move back to the community. I find myself there at least 3 times a week because I have friends in View Park, Baldwin Hills, etc. But I'd like to just focus on a couple of points. First of all, I have at least 20 of my friends who would love to buy in that community. Now, I must admit the show of hands here are for individuals who really can't be here. There's a number of people who are the working class that just can't be here to also show their strong support, at least over 300, to sign a petition. Now, I also like to state about the traffic. One thing about the traffic in the neighborhood, that's inevitable that it's going to happen. You got Slauson on one side, you got Playa Vista down the other side, you got the Crenshaw corridor that they're constantly working on. And nowadays, I used to remember the day that I used to just look for my shortcuts. Now what I do is grab my GPS. And everybody's grabbing their GPS and going through the community. That's just inevitable. It's just a way of living in Los Angeles. I remember at the time when we talked about change is going to come, Sam Cooke back in the day, okay? I remember Ira yelling when he first did the wrought iron building, which I worked with him on that bill. They said downtown wouldn't be what it is. Look at downtown LA now. I mean, so change is inevitable, so we have to embrace it. I'm not saying that everything is right about what's going on here, but we really need to take a close look at everything about it. The environmental part of it, as long as that meets the standard that it should be, by all rights and things of that, I think the project should go on. I think it's needed. I think it's well-deserved. I've not always been a proponent for Chuck Quarles or some of his projects, I'll be honest about it. But I must admit, the community should applaud itself because by them keep beating on him and beating on him, they really chisel to me what is a great project. I mean, to me, it looks like Beverly Hills or Brentwood. It's the type of project that could be there. So I commend the community for that. But right now, I think it's about time for us to really take a look at something that's going to change the community and help uplift the community. And I've done economic development throughout this city, throughout this country. And I think this is a good opportunity for the community if we look at it the right way. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next four speakers are Sandra Nadeau, Tanya Asher, Flo Ward, and Michelle Wallace.
Welcome. You heard your name called. You can come forward. You'll have 3 minutes if you want to use it. And if you could state your name for the record, you can go ahead and begin. Welcome.
My name is Michelle Wallace, and I'm here to show my full support for the project. Greetings to the commissioners, first of all. I took off from work today to show my support for the project. And I was raised in Leimert Park. I recently moved from Leimert Park. I purchased a home in Baldwin Vista. I had a home in Leimert Park that I sold and purchased in Baldwin Vista. My 86-year-old mother currently lives in the family home in Leimert Park. And after hearing about the project, my mother and I became very excited about the project because this will be an opportunity for her to downsize and move from her home in Leimert Park and move into a luxury type condominium that will make it a lot easier for her as opposed to the two-story home that she currently resides in. It's my desire to purchase a unit with my mother for her to reside in, and this project will allow her to stay in the community that she very much loves. Right now, I don't think that there's anything of the caliber of what I'm hearing this project will be that will really, someplace where she can feel at home and feel in the same type of environment that she currently resides in. So I'm excited that the developer that also lives in the community and he cares about the community. And I think that it's important to him, from what I'm hearing, because I've gone to several presentations, that it's important to him to give us the type of environment that we will feel suits the neighborhood. So in closing, I am in full support of this project. Like I said, my mother is not able to be here today, but she's very excited, and she's asked me almost every other month, do you know when they're going to start? Do you know when it's going to? So I asked Darren today, actually on the bus, when will it start and how long will it take, so that I can give that information to my mother. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tanya Asher, and I am a resident of View Heights. So my neighborhood would be affected by this project as well. I'm in opposition to it. If you look at the map of the 5-point intersection there, with the traffic going south on Overhill only, it crosses over Slauson, the exit. So if people are exiting the building, they'll go down Overhill to Slauson and make a right, usually, to get where they need to be. However, Overhill extends further, about a mile from the project site, down to a stop sign, and that's the end of Overhill. And then it makes a right to La Brea on Fairview, which is now, that's considered Inglewood, North Inglewood. There are developments proposed down on Stocker near Don Felipe that are being in the works. There's a development on Centinela and La Cienega, right next to Pan's in that area, some new luxury buildings that are geared towards Playa Vista, the tech companies, the people working for those industries. There are a number of impacts that are coming our way to that 5-point intersection. So I am below Slauson on 58th Street, and my exit route to work to get down to Culver City it's a horrible commute to go 3 miles. I go 3 miles to work, and if I don't leave by 6:30, it's almost a 45-minute commute. My concern too is with the Bedford Group. The video is great. Knowing that Playa Vista is just down the street, as a resident, people who are moving in the neighborhood, they don't necessarily look like us. I'll be honest, they're newest residents. And so I'm looking at this, like, how are you going to guarantee people of color, or in your videos, that's what the majority of your income, your makeup of your building is going to be, owners. 5% of a 88% or 88 building is 4 units for moderate income. 10% is 8 units for moderate income. You can count on a bidding war happening for those units. Those units will have views. They are not going to go for $400,000. We already have bidding wars in our community for a house. People are overbidding each other $50,000 to get into our neighborhoods, and you think you can count on that not happening for those units. And I doubt that it'll be predominantly of people of color, in my opinion. Not to say that that's not okay, but I'm just saying that I don't think that'll be the case. Also, and if it's 5%, you're asking for 10%, is the county going to give something in return? Most developers don't get, if the county wants a increase in affordable units, then usually developers want something in return. They want a height increase or more units. So that's a question of mine too.
Thank you very much. Excuse me.
Before you call the next speaker, I noticed the deputy for the supervisors here. Before he leaves, I'd like to hear where the supervisor stands on this.
Generally, we don't have the supervisor's office speak on these matters because this could be appealed up to the supervisor.
So. Okay. All right.
I'd like to have a last call for Sandra Nadeau and Flo Ward. And then the next 4 speakers are Bernice Evans, Beleda Mercier, Gina Lofton, and Janice Watson.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. You can state your name for the record and go ahead and begin.
All right, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Gina Lofton. I reside in Ladera Heights, which is the community just adjacent to View Park. I'm not as impacted by the project as others in this community, as you've heard from them earlier today. But over the course of many decades, I have witnessed the development of strip malls, liquor stores, and churches throughout my neighborhood and all major inner cities throughout the U.S. Many of the housing delivered during this time frame has either been affordable housing, that is 100% affordable housing, subsidized by taxpayers' dollars. As a result, my community has practically been starved to death from receiving investment capital, which has been prevalent in other communities, of which results in a lack of commerce, employment, and a tax base. The Bedford Group has designed an aesthetically appealing building and adhered to all the Planning Commission's guidelines. I do want to make a note. The gentleman earlier today mentioned the Santa Rosalia project in bankruptcy. I'm very familiar with that project. In my opinion, it was the community's fault for that devastation, as they didn't allow the developer to build what was originally planned for the property, which was 120 apartments and 64 sale condominium units. They didn't want the apartments, which would have been the first market rate, non-subsidized apartment built in the LA area in my generation. Their actions increased the cost and elongated the schedule, which I pray we are not repeating that today. We should applaud the Bedford Group for continuing to invest in our community. While Beverly Hills and other areas of Los Angeles may have their developers like Caruso, we have Charles Quarles, who knows what we need. He is born and he is raised in this community. For us not to support our neighbor, an employer, and the project sponsor is absolutely embarrassing in my opinion. Now let me spend a moment to talk about the traffic study. I also want to talk about all of the people who have said that there is going to be additional traffic that's added as a result of this project. What people are failing to realize, including the traffic studies that I've seen, is the advent of technology. There are more self-driving vehicles that have been introduced. As a matter of fact, the automotive industry is selling less cars today than they have in prior years. With the new Crenshaw line that is coming in will be another way in which people can get out of that area and just go down Stocker and get on the new Crenshaw line that is coming within the next year.
Excuse me. Sorry, ma'am. I apologize to interrupt, but I want to make sure, can we please keep our voices down while other people are speaking? It's important. We want to make sure everyone has an equal opportunity to talk and to address the commission and to share concerns. So I'd ask that you please don't interrupt folks when they're up at the podium speaking to us. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you so much. So in conclusion, what traffic studies fail to actually take into account is what is happening in the future. It only looks at today and the past. What traffic studies need to do is look into the future and the technology changes that are happening across the country, if not the world. Therefore, I do request the commission to approve the project to make our community great again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Sandra Napier. I live at 4829 South Ridge. Most of the comments and oppose and approve of the public has already stated my view. I am opposed to this project mainly because of the traffic, but also because right now there is a gradual but a gradual increase nevertheless in crime. And in our neighborhood, burglaries, robberies. Since the park corridors have been opened, we have experienced that in our neighborhoods right now. I don't hear if there was any study as a result of a crime increase because of the 88-unit building going up. Also, I'm concerned that if the units are not sold, and if they're sold, they're going to be subleased. And I feel that in rental properties, this is where you will start getting this increase of burglaries and robberies. So I am opposed to this project. One thing that I've been in View Park for over 30 years. I've lived there, probably only 30 years. The last thing that we need is an increase in housing and people. We need an increase in commercial development on Slauson. We need traffic control on what you call between Fairfax going on Stocker. And so there's a lot of other problems that we have right now. And I just think that having an 88-unit complex is going to exacerbate the problem. And I'm sorry, I'm against it. I don't need it. I don't care who the developer is. I think he's picked the wrong property to build such a project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Welcome.
My name is Valida Mercier. I grew up, moved in 5216 South Ridge Avenue in 1962, and I lived on West Boulevard in Angeles Vista. So I've watched the community turn full circle since 1962. I have 2 points. One is the intersection there at Stocker, Overhill, and La Brea that all come together. Always been very dangerous, and I think adding more traffic to that intersection will be asking for more trouble. And on the other point I want to make, I attended Windsor Hills Elementary School, which would be, if the project is approved, right above it. It was always a joy for me when I could hit that ball over the fence and run around there and pick it up. What I'm saying is we have to kind of think about those children that go to Windsor Hills Elementary School, going to that gate, and also looking down at the pool, as kids will do, or looking down at that particular property if it's approved to be built. That's something to take into consideration. Are the children at Windsor Hills Elementary School? And the last point I want to make, I think it would be great if the Bedford Group would look into, for our neighborhood, which is changing, at some a market or some sort of other commercial things that's much needed in that neighborhood. We don't have a nice Nordstrom's rack. We don't have a market other than small neighborhood markets. So there are other things that's much needed, no matter if the community changes to millennials or people my age who, have become the seniors of the area. It doesn't matter. Commercial stores, markets, other than 99-cent stores and Dollar Trees, which we get. That's needed for our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
This is the last call for Janice Watson. And then the next four speakers are Walter Jones, Derek Richardson, Gerard Smith, and Anita Barnett.
So if you heard your name called, feel free to come forward. Welcome.
Hello.
Go ahead and begin.
My name is Derek Richardson. I live at 6102 South Citrus Avenue. Commissioners, thank you. But first of all, I'd just like to apologize to all of my elder neighbors for taking care of that community. I'm from the projects of Brooklyn, New York. And when I came here, that's where I wanted to live because of the way they kept it. We don't care. We want change. We understand change is going to happen. This project is like putting a square into a round hole. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. You're talking about an historical neighborhood. House across the street from me is where Laurel and Hardy was filmed. Up, you can research. Going up and down Citrus Avenue is where James Dean's movies were filmed. It doesn't fit. I do think that we can do something with it and work with the Bedford Group. I have challenges that he hadn't reached out to the neighbors on Crest and said, how can we make this work? I have challenges. When I saw his video, all I saw was me, my, and I. I didn't see we and us. This community is not like that. I'm from the projects, okay? When I came in that community, I was used to jumping on the couches. You don't jump on the couches in View Park and Windsor Hills. And I had to learn to understand that. So they will accept us. We want our young millennials to come in. We do. But you guys are highly intelligent. You know these are not going to go for $400,000 to $700,000. You know that. There's going to be a bidding war. He can't say that he's going to give to just minorities because that's what? Discrimination. Come on. The only thing I'm asking is you can smell. Something just isn't right. Something's just not right. Our elders here deserve a lot more because the reason why he's not building on 120th and Central, no disrespect to 120th and Central, I'll be there tomorrow at the Drew League, is because of these individuals. They took care of that community, and they want to work with them. We're not trying to be unfair. We're not unfair people, but you just can't come and build that. That's not right. That's not right. Look at that. And then you go look at you've been down there. That's going to be like the big White House on Slauson. It's going to become a landmark. I think our communities owe better than that. That's all I like to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gerard Smith. I, too, are from the East Coast, originally from New Jersey. I've been in View Park now for 14 years. I understand that California is increasing by the month. I've watched the development of Silicon Beach take place, and I've seen other developments. If you look downtown, there's cranes everywhere. everything is being developed, which brings me to this point where change is inevitable. I do understand that we want to keep the integrity of View Park. That's why I moved there. I think it's a beautiful place for African Americans to reside. If you look throughout Los Angeles, there's not much territory where I can see a man who looks like me or a child that looks like my children. So for that, I applaud the project. And I do understand that everybody has an opinion, and they feel that their opinion is valid. I too feel my opinion is valid, just as the Bedford Group feels that their development is valid for this community. I do understand that there has to be adjustments and change. You know, things are changing around us. We can either be a part of that change, or we can sit back and watch it change before us. So with that being said, without being rude to anyone, again, I appreciate your comments. I just say use ocular analysis and see what's going on around Los Angeles. This may give an opportunity for somebody that looks like us, and I'm not being racist or anything, but it's a good feeling inside to know that I can look at this man who's a developer and wants to develop in a community that has affluent black people. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the last call for Walter Jones and Anita Barnett. And the next four speakers are Joyce Taylor, Joanne Williams, Nina Turner, and Richard Price.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Thanks for sticking it out with us into the afternoon. You want to give your name for the record? You can go ahead and begin.
Okay. My name is Anita Barnett, and I currently live in the Bedford Promenade, which is a condominium, 102 units, that was built by Mr. Quarles, and I love it. However, I am in favor of the new project, as it is a dream come true for me. I understand how the people feel that say that they're going to lose their view, but for me, I'm going to get a view. And that's I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying that to say that everyone has different dreams. And because my dream is a view, that doesn't make it any less sad for you to lose your dream house. I noticed that when most of the people came up, they had lived in their homes 30 and 40 years, 50 years. That's a wonderful thing. And that was my experience when I moved to California from Brooklyn, New York. We purchased a house on 18th Street and West Boulevard, and we lived there for 35 years. And we were very happy there. However, the house was built in 1917, so my husband, during the days that he was well, he was able to fix everything and keep the house going. But as in life, shit happens, and that's what happened to us. My neighbor, who had 7 bedrooms, opened her home to sober living, and we didn't know at the time that sober living doesn't mean sober. However, my husband was very upset about the noise and what was going on next door. So after 35 years, we had to move. We moved to Leisure World, they call it Laguna Woods now, and we lived there for 10 years. And after the death of my husband, I came back to California because I have 4 children and 9 grandchildren in Los Angeles. So I said it was no sense of them coming 50 miles to see me when I can get up and move. And I heard recently that if you don't move within 5 years, you're a hoarder. So I've met the bill because I've been moving quite often. But I am so in favor of this project because I don't think that cars and traffic is a reason that we will not have progress. Before we moved to Laguna Woods, we went to Long Beach to try to purchase a place there. We were looking for a condominium, and we had a lot of trouble in Long Beach. And so I'll tell anybody, be happy that those units are going to be there, because if you go to Long Beach and Beverly Hills, they're not going to let you in. That was our experience. And it might not be your experience, but it was our experience. And at any rate, the thing that I believe is that when you're in a home and you're raising children, that's what you need. But when you retire and you have an empty nest, you might be looking for something else. Thank God for the Bedford Group, that as we move on in life, there's somewhere to go. And I'm looking forward to a unit way up on the 5th floor so I can see the ocean. And I hope that you'll wish me well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Joyce Taylor, and I've been a resident of Windsor Hills for 49 years, and I'm not a hoarder. I am here today to request the Board of Supervisors negotiate the purchase of the parcel located at the intersection of Stocker, La Brea, and Overhill, and preserve that parcel as permanent green space for the Windsor Hills View Park community. As you know, 3 of the 4 corners are developed green park space already, and developing the 4th corner as such would support the community's open space and walking paths that the county planners had earlier designed. As residents, we know we can't control all of the redevelopment and growth that is forthcoming. We accept that. However, we strongly believe that the 961 residential units now planned for the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza project will result in increased traffic congestion and air pollution, and that the board should take active steps to prevent further pollution. Furthermore, the intersection located at Overhill, Stocker, and La Brea is a far cry from being the safest to begin with. Residents like myself can always spot newcomers to this area as we watch them make illegal turns at the intersection and run red lights. I believe the board should step in and assist with striking the balance between the efforts to revitalize this community versus overwhelming it. We support the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza project that can accommodate the additional housing units. We respectfully ask that you review this project, as the vast majority of households in 90043 are overwhelmingly opposed to this project due to its negative impact on our community, traffic, and air quality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for hosting so many of us. I was number 70 or whatever, and I said, I'll never get to speak, but I am. So thank you for taking so many of us and our comments. I'm a longtime resident of View Park. I've lived there over 40 years. I like to say I started when I was a little one, but the neighborhood has changed over the years, and I do concur with many of the comments that have been made earlier about not supporting the project. One gentleman said it was like trying to put a square in a round hole, and I do agree with that. It's just out of place. It may be a good project, but not for that location. And I just think it just makes my blood boil when I think about that project being there so close to so many of our homes. I don't think it would work. And I think I want to ask the commission to keep in mind the comments made by our president. He made some very important points, and many of the other people who are in the opposition of the project. I'm not saying it's not a good project. I just don't think it's a good project for that area, for that location. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the last call for Nina Turner and Richard Price. The next four speakers are Adrian Mayberry, Glenn Sato, Kenneth Williams, and Camille Ellison.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm in full support of the project today. I am a current resident of one of the Bedford properties, and I can honestly say that I'm blessed to have been able to purchase a property when I purchased it about 6 to 7 years ago. I currently have former friends and associates that attended UCLA with me right now who are, in a way, jealous of the fact that I was able to acquire mine at that time, because right now, us professionals who are working every day, most of us in the legislative arena, they're having to have roommates. They can't afford to live in the area, or they're living in areas on the outskirts and having to make the long commutes every day. So it's kind of unfair to this generation who is paying into the tax base to not have the opportunity for us to live in the level of luxury and comfort and security that this area provides. So I would like to just implore the people who are here, we enjoy the neighborhoods, we appreciate it. I understand the concerns about the parks. There's plenty of parks. There's Kenneth Hahn Park, that giant thing that's right across from the property. I understand the park poorness. I understand the traffic, the level of service for the traffic in the area. If it is not a drastic change from what we're currently having, and if the studies prove that all of these proposed changes to the area aren't going to be as impactful, I say let's do it. Let's allow the people to move into this area. Yes, there's a lot of improvements and changes that are happening in downtown Los Angeles. They're making provisions for it. If the board sees that this project does not change what is happening in that area, why not? We have to make room for what the county is moving forward to promote, which is housing for the people who have lived and grown here. My family home is in South Los Angeles. I personally don't want to live in the area that I grew up in. I prefer to live where I've gone to school in and made my friends and with. And I am a single person, so I'm not to the point where I want to acquire a home where I would need to have, a yard, et cetera. So having a condominium in this area for someone like me, I pay my property taxes. It's not a big deal. We get it done. They take care of the grounds. Everything is beautiful. It's scenic. It's just a wonderful place to be, and we're all comfortable there. We have seniors in our buildings, we have young people in our buildings, we have budding families coming through those buildings. So I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. They're saying that the type of renters that may potentially come into the area might cause crime. I don't agree with that. Crime is everywhere. There's homelessness that hasn't been addressed, so therefore the crime is coming from the people who are looking to take from those who aren't making room for them to be in that neighborhood or providing jobs in the area to address those economic issues. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Adrian Mayberry. I just have a few comments. Again, the traffic issue that we've all talked about, and we haven't talked as much about the safety. There is a blind spot on Overhill. I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't believe there will be adequate parking for all the cars that will be there, particularly when we're talking about focusing to a large degree on young people who tend to own cars and have guests, have parties. There is a parking lot at the little, the Stocker Overhill crossing that was discussed before, where all the fruit trees are. I can envision people parking there, staggering across or back across, trying to get, after they've been at the party, and you can't see them anyway. There's not lighting. There's no sidewalk on Overhill. So I don't want to hit them. I may not know I have until they're down. Just saying. This has never been a first-time home buyer community. That's not what the intention was. I have 3 millennials, 2 of them own homes. They don't own where we are. You don't start out where your parents end up. And I think everybody, that's pretty well known. I know when I was first looking for a house, and my husband and I, we were looking in Windsor Hills and View Park, because that's where I grew up, and he told me, he said, well, was that your parents' first home? I said, well, no, we lived on Curson, we lived on Genesee, then we moved to Honor-Crest. They're like, well, why do you think you're supposed to start out where your parents ended up? And I think that's a very valid point. And I know that there's an entitlement mentality in some of the younger people, and sometimes we just have to recognize that yes, they're working hard, and they're working, a lot of them, harder than they ever anticipated, because our economy is a lot more difficult. But you can't expect people to just give you something because you want it. I don't know of any of us who have had that happen. So that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Glenn Sato, and I was born and raised in Santa Monica to a working class family of 8. It was back when Dad could work, Mom could stay home, so that's what happened. I was real lucky that way. The neighborhood I grew up in is exactly like the neighborhood I live in right now. And I love it because we look out for each other, we talk to each other, and I really enjoy this community. They welcomed me, it was great. So I worked really hard to buy this first home. It's my dream home. Basically, I got super lucky. So the challenge to buy your first home has always existed for every generation. So I don't, like the lady said before me, it's impossible to buy where you dream of. You have to start small and then work your way up. My concerns are basically the following. I'm afraid that if you allow the height limit to be basically demolished, everyone after will then build over height, and you'll have no recourse. I don't know how this works, but I don't want to open that door. The next is digging next to the earthquake fault. If you drive on Overhill, there is a large crack. If you drive, it goes all the way across the street. It goes through Alicia's home. It goes through the schoolyard. 4 years ago, it was repaired, and now it's back to probably an 8-inch drop. It's smoothed out, so it's kind of smooth, but you can catch air on it if you go fast enough. So I invite you to drive that road and check it out. It's in 4 years, it's shifted again. The next thing is about the ingress and egress from the project. By only allowing them to go this way, there is going to be a tremendous amount of traffic on every side street that leads to Slauson, that leads to La Brea, that leads to Angeles Vista. And Waze, of course, has helped. But if you just look at Thomas Guide, you can figure it out on a map which way you can get through. But my street, Honor-Crest, has seen an increase in traffic. And the tenants of this place are going to be using our streets to shortcut their way home and make their way out. So traffic's inevitable, but I think that if we can build smart, have some great planning, and build it without underground parking, under the height limit, that would be very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the last call for Kenneth Williams and Camille Ellison. The next 4 speakers are Ryan Clinton, Irma Williams Bradley, Naji Ali, and Otis Riley.
Great. If you heard your name called, you can come forward. You'll have 3 minutes, but again, recognizing our time constraints, if you feel like what you want to say has been said, you don't need to use your full 3, but of course you're welcome to. Welcome. You can have a seat up here in the front. Thank you. Welcome.
Well, I feel really grateful to get to this point of the day because I felt like you weren't going to call me at all. My name is Irma Williams Bradley. I happen to have been in a community, and I bought my house when my grandmother said, "Why are you paying so much?" And I paid $142,000 for it. So here we are. And at that time, I was in my 30s. I'm not there any longer, but I do live where I am totally going to be impacted by your new project. I'm in banking, and I'm always happy to help new home buyers get a new home. However, unless the project is at the CRA tracking for makes it CRA eligible, then it's not going to be just, you know, the low down payment of 3% or 5%. It's because this project is sitting on a perfect spot to have a very great view. Now, the project that is down on Santa Rosalia is fabulous because it's in a commercial area where it can handle that massive amount of ingress and egress. 5 Points cannot. My home is 4501 Valdina Place. It's a cul-de-sac, but it borders Overhill. We currently now have, my husband works at UCLA, to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to work in 20 minutes as opposed to leaving at 7:30 when he normally would, and it takes him an hour and a half to get to work if he leaves at 7:30 just to get 9 miles up the road. To get from out of Overhill and Slauson, if you haven't driven there lately, just about everyone has, because if you're coming off the 405 freeway or if you're coming from the airport, you are going to cross 5 Points because you don't want to stay on the 405. You want to cut through. I've seen every president come through there to make their way across Stocker to get their way to downtown LA. It's wonderful that we have our traffic on new rails and what have you, but people are still using their cars. The LA County, as far as lighting, for getting just down Slauson, is a nightmare. Our community down the road in Ladera Heights is totally impacted by us just trying to get off the hill. Trying to come home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, coming up La Cienega, you cannot turn left on Stocker and La Cienega. The car left turn area is not even long enough to handle 50 cars that need to turn left. We can't get in and you cannot get out. So here we are talking about an 88 unit. There's several nice condominiums right there in our area. Terra Nova, it's about 22, maybe 18 units. It's not 88 looking for a view. I've helped a lot of folks get in that. I've helped a lot of people get into the Bedford group area, but it's CRA tracked and it has a designation of low to mod. This project, to give us 5 or maybe 10 units that are going to be designated, they won't get any provision of financing. They're only just going to be designated with an exclusion. Okay, so when you get ready to turn around and resell, you've got to sell it to someone who has like for like. So there's a whole different thing. My friends that are up here at Honor-Crest that are going to be right behind this unit at 88 5-story, take it down to 22 units. It's a really aesthetically nice project. But their appraisal is going to be impacted by the value. And as you all are homeowners, I'm sure in this committee, you know what $25,000 can do to your value, okay? So they're going to lose $25,000 to $50,000 just because they will abut a unit.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I hate to cut you off, but we're past your time. So if you want to just conclude real quick. That's it? All right.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Last call for Ryan Clinton, Najee Ali, and Otis Riley. And this is the final 5 speakers. Michael Alatorre, Charlotte Thompson, Tomas Johnson, Oliver Boy, and Ware Colt.
You just heard your name called. Feel free to make your way up to the front. Welcome. Thanks for sticking around with us into the afternoon. If you want to state your name for the record, you can go ahead and begin.
My name is Charlotte Thompson, and there's been a lot of talk about the community and the price of the homes, and people want to move in, and they can't afford it. I lived in View Park for 3 years. I didn't start out in View Park. I started out in an area I could afford, and I moved up to View Park. And that's just like anywhere else. It's a special neighborhood, and we take pride in our neighborhood. And there are other communities. I might want to move in Bel Air. If I can't afford it, I can't move there. The community does not change just because of your wants and needs. It's not fair. And it's a community. We're not saying there not to be any development, but to not talk to the community that the development is going to reside in and come to some compromise is unreasonable. It's not fair. We all pay taxes, and we take pride in our communities. And we're not asking them to not put anything there, but listen to the community and respect the community that it will reside in. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, my name is Najee Ali, a longtime Black South LA activist who's lived in the Leimert Park area for the last 20 years, which is not too far from the proposed development. And I am in full support of the Bedford project. I think it's very important that we realize there's a crisis in housing in our part of the city. And at the end of the day, that development that's proposed is something that my family is able to afford. So for me, I think it's very important that Black professionals have an opportunity to buy in our own communities. And I also, want to speak for my last 2 minutes to Black folks, my neighbors, my family, my community. Because
excuse me, no, please.
If I can finish, I was respectful when everyone else spoke. I'm just saying, I'm speaking to my community. My wife is a 23-year veteran of armed forces.
Sir, can I, just one moment. I just want to please, again, we've made it this far. We're almost 1 o'clock. Everyone who wanted to had an opportunity to speak, and that's what this day is about bringing in and hearing voices. So
comments should be to the commission, not an exchange back and forth between the
Absolutely. So what I'm going to ask is 2 parts. One, let's let everyone have a moment, an opportunity to speak like everyone else did so that we can hear all sides of this, every perspective. Okay? Appreciate that, and we can make sure that we're hearing everybody's voices and everybody's concerns. At the same time, I do need to ask that you address comments to the commission because that's sort of what the...
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. As I was saying, my wife is a 23-year veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces who's risked her life all over the world, fighting for our country, from Iraq to Afghanistan. She had a VA loan a few months ago where she wanted to buy a house in Corona for like $550, 4-bedroom, 2,500 square feet. We went and looked, and we almost bought it. And at the last minute, I had a change of heart and said, no, I want to live, in the Crenshaw, Leimert Park, Baldwin Hills area. So we changed our mind, not because we couldn't buy the house. It was because I love Black people. I love Kwanzaa. I love the King Day Festival. And I wanted to make sure that we stayed in our community and didn't move away because, in my opinion, traffic isn't the biggest danger in that part of the community. It's gentrification. To me, that's my opinion. I'm not racist, but at the end of the day, I want my daughter to continue to be in African-American school where she can learn our culture, our values, and have a chance to play with kids that look just like her. So for me, that's why I said I want to support this project because Mr. Quarles, we're not buddy-buddies. I just met this man this morning. And at the end of the day, I know his work is respected in the community. He's an icon. Not only that, as a successful business person, he's a philanthropist and humanitarian. That's what I know him by. So I took off work today to come support this project because I know he does good work in the community. So for me, I support this project 1,000%. And just as an African American, we can agree, disagree respectfully on issues. Because at the end of the day, I love black people. You know, I love my people. That's why I stayed in the Merritt Park area. So in my closing, I would ask this commission to please vote yes on the Bedford project. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was one person whose name I forgot to call, which is Starlet Quarles.
Can you repeat the name? I'm not sure. Yeah, thank you.
Starlet Quarles.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Good afternoon at this point. Again, my name is Starlet Quarles, and I am Marketing Director for the Bedford Group. But more importantly, I have been a resident of the 2nd Supervisorial District for over 35 years. I grew up in Ladera. I attended Parent Elementary School, and I have lived in the View Park community for over 20 years in the home that my father built on Kenway Avenue. But as you can see, there is a generational divide when it comes to this development and to the development of this project. As Darren mentioned earlier, we have over 370 signed petitions of support, with the majority of those being from individuals who could not make it today because they had to be at work. In fact, some of our supporters that you have called and have not been able to speak had to go back to their 9 to 5. They are not retirees like many of those here in opposition. One of the most disheartening things that I've heard from some of the opposers from the United Homeowners Association is that I don't deserve to live in this community and that it's not my generation's time to live in this community. Someone encouraged me to look outside my neighborhood. She told me to consider Culver City or Leimert Park until I could afford to move back into the View Park, Windsor Hills community. Why, when some of my peers are already here? Well, with the developments that my father has already built in the Baldwin Hills area, my generation has been able to afford to move back into the communities in which we were raised. Our primary buyers have been single, minority professional women like myself, with some of our home buyers already have earning over $200,000 in equity from their property. For over the past 15 years, we have been providing first-time home buyer opportunities for young professionals, as well as for couples and empty nesters who have wanted to downsize and remain in the area because the care of their home was just too much. And this is true for this development, The View. I support the project not only because I believe in it, but I also plan to purchase one for myself because I do deserve to move back to purchase in the community in which I was raised, despite the opposition. While this is a single-family community, I do have to note that there are condominiums in other upscale communities like Beverly Hills and Century City. I support open space. There are already two parks adjacent to the site. I'm also a board member of the Baldwin Hills Conservancy, where I have been for the past 5 years. In fact, the Quimby funds from our Terra Nova project contributed greatly to the redevelopment of the Norman O. Houston Park. In terms of outreach, we have hosted several meetings over the past year and have changed several aspects of the project. We've even knocked on the doors to even have a gun drawn on us by a homeowner on Ownercrest when we attempted to talk to him about the project. We've also attempted to meet with the 6 homeowners along Ownercrest, but were only invited by the elderly gentleman whose letter was read earlier today. The others would not speak to us. Lastly, in terms of traffic, the majority of the current increase comes from the development of the Metro line along Crenshaw, as well as the traffic of the mall and the development of the mall. And as our traffic consultant will share, our project will have minimal impact on the existing traffic flow. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much.
That concludes our speakers.
Thank you. Thank you all for staying with us and for sharing your thoughts and perspectives and passions. It was a long day, and I appreciate everyone sticking it out. And so at this point, we want to invite the applicant back up. We have a 10-minute period if you want to use it to respond to, or address any of the concerns that you heard this morning. Thank you, welcome. And if you could be sure to state your names again for the record, that'd be great.
My name is Michael Luna. I am the architect for the project of Michael Luna and Associates Architects. And I'm here with Ms. Claire Yeager of Lynn Scott Law and Greenspan. She is the traffic consultant for this project. First of all, thank you very much. I can't tell you what an honor it is for me to do work in this community. I'm originally from Los Angeles, born and raised. I know the various communities well. I'd like to also add that I'm here with Richard Price, the landscape architect for the project. I'm also here with Caleb Rios of Toll Engineering. He can speak to sewer impacts, water availability, and things like that, and site drainage as well. With regard to the geological aspects of this project, and specifically, there's been comments tonight about fracking. Unfortunately, our geologist could not be here today. So with my limited knowledge, I would like to indeed respond to some of those concerns. With regard to fracking and the adjacent fault, and perhaps they are somewhat interrelated, I would stress that in order to construct a project in the county of Los Angeles or anywhere in the state of California, once receiving approvals, we have to go through a very rigorous plan check process, geotechnically, engineering-wise, foundation, and so forth, and much of that has already been completed at our preliminary review of this process. Indeed, we are not constructing right on top of a fault. It is more than 50 feet away from the closest edge of our building. And so any and all of this will be safeguarded through construction means and methods that will meet the California Building Code. With regard to our design of our project, if I may real quick. I'm not sure if you've all had the opportunity to see the current aesthetics of the exterior of the project, so I just want to make sure that you have that in front of you. But also, with regard to the project design, we worked very hard to push this project well back north, as far away we could as from the residential aspect of our neighbor. Indeed, with regard to our neighbors, my gosh, realistically, if we built even a 1 or 2 story apartment building, or even if a commercial building was constructed, their views to the north would be blocked. However, we were very careful on this project to make sure that we maintain sideways views towards the west and towards the east. Those vista corridors are just still going to be there in terms of those directions. But any other development on this property will block views, any available views to the north. With regard to the question was raised about traffic generation, I just did want to add with regard to traffic. Indeed, if this was a commercial use, the traffic trip generations that a commercial use would pose on the neighborhood far exceeds residential densities and residential uses. So quite honestly, it is, in terms of traffic impacts, it is one of the least impactful uses that can be proposed for this property. Transitional uses. There needs to be typically, in any model planning code, uses such as multifamily development between commercial development and single-family residences, and that's a standard practice. So I think multifamily development is indeed very, very appropriate. But we were very careful when we did this project. We tried to, as you can see, we've turned the building at different axes and faced them away. If I may just point real quick.
Yeah, if we could ask you to use a pointer, because we are creating a transcript, so as much as you can speak into the microphone, the better. Thanks.
Yeah, so on this side here, we turn this view sideways, and on this side, we turned it sideways facing the view and not towards the residential neighborhood. So this definitely helped to provide more privacy. We have a very significant row of landscaping between the residential use and this project. And with regard to height, there was a question as to how to measure height. And of course, when you look at a set of plans, they're flat, they're two-dimensional, and you think, oh my gosh, this looks very high on this on the La Brea side. But indeed, we have worked hard to conform to the hillside development standards, and staff has confirmed that we have met the objectives of those standards. And so we did that by achieving very serious stair-stepping of that exterior elevation along the, the La Brea elevation. So although on plan and just two-dimensionally you can measure vertically and see a larger number, but the real reality is because the building steps back so much as the kind of like a wedding cake, it steps back, the perceived height of the building will not really be able to be fully perceived from La Brea. And so what you're going to see are just the lower levels of the building along the La Brea side. And quite honestly, there's really no view vistas that look towards that La Brea elevation. With that, I think I will turn over the remainder of my time. And of course, our team is available to answer any questions. But Claire Yeager can, I think, address some of the traffic issues that were discussed.
Excellent, thank you.
Good afternoon. As Mr. Luna mentioned, my name is Claire Look Yeager. I'm a registered civil engineer with the state of California. I'm sorry, registered traffic engineer. It's a branch of civil engineering. I've been in practice about 30 years in the greater Los Angeles area, and I'm a principal with LLG Engineers. Our firm prepared a very detailed traffic impact study prior to formal clearance from Department of Public Works, Traffic and Lighting Division. We complied with all city requirements in the traffic analysis, looking at 7 off-site intersections, as well as taking a very, very detailed look at site access and circulation. This afternoon, you've heard many comments and many concerns about safety. We as transportation planning professionals, of course, share those same concerns. I've given to staff a copy of a graphic that shows proposed restriping and proposed roadway widening on Overhill Drive. We carefully reviewed speeds by conducting detailed radar speed surveys of current traffic conditions along Overhill Drive. We looked at intersection site distance and those requirements, which very quickly is to ensure that a motorist exiting the site has an adequate, clear line of sight to safely make their turning maneuver onto what Overhill is classified as a major Class 2 highway per county standards. We also looked at stopping site distance, which ensures that a motorist will have sufficient distance if they need to decelerate. The graphic you have before you shows what's been referred to as a two-way left turn lane. Think of it as a safe refuge area. If you're very familiar with Overhill, it's 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes southbound. And even though it's posted 35 miles per hour, the 85th percentile speeds are higher than that, roughly 40 to 42. What this does for northbound left turns into the project site, it affords that refuge area for a motorist to pull out of the number 1 through lane, have a long enough distance to decelerate, and not cause congestion and queuing. By the same token, this refuge area in the middle of Overhill also affords anyone making a left turn out of the project site to not have to wait for a gap in both directions. They can make the left turn into the refuge area and wait for a clearance in northbound. Last but not least, our analysis does show very congested conditions. It's similar to a grade in school. You're probably very familiar with levels of service. A is free flow, no congestion. Then it degrades to B, C, D, E, and F. There's no doubt there are some locations that are currently, and forecast to operate level of service E and F in the future. There's very specific criteria when we as a traffic engineer have to report a significant impact. Based on county's threshold, this project did not exceed those thresholds. There is roadway widening. There will also be roadway restriping along the frontage. The civil plans also are showing construction of a 6-foot sidewalk along the project frontage. I know pedestrian circulation was also a comment raised by the public, in addition to a 10-foot parkway. The applicant has committed to ensure those improvements are constructed so as to result in a safe and efficient circulation system.
Just on the remainder of our time, I just want to add that indeed, I think we all know and we're aware there is indeed a shortage of housing in the greater Los Angeles area. This project is intending to try to help address that need.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up really quickly on the two-way left turn because it is something that we've heard a fair amount about today and concerns. Specifically the two-way left turn, but in response to broader concerns about traffic and ingress and egress. And I just want to confirm that there was that the two-way left turn on Overhill and the striping, that is currently proposed to be a condition. So if this project is approved, that would be a condition that the developer would have to comply with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so there was some confusion about whether that made it into the conditions. Now, there was also some questions and concerns about timing and enforcement of the compliance with that condition, which I think are always really important questions because it's one thing to put a condition on paper and it's another thing to see it actually come to fruition. So do we know if this project was approved and that condition was part of the conditions of approval, what would the timing be to do that striping for the two-way left turn, and then what is the county's mechanism to make sure that it actually happens?
Sure, that condition is in the Department of Public Works road section, and you'd be better served to hear from Andy.
All of these improvements would be required to be constructed before the applicant receives their certificate of occupancy. The applicant will also be required to post security performance bonds to guarantee those improvements.
So the striping, just to confirm, the striping, the two-way left turn striping would have to occur before the first certificate of occupancy in the building?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Do we have any questions? I think we'll move to questions generally now. Commissioner Louie.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The seismic requirements, those will be complied with, I'm sure. As to the subsidence, potential subsidence due to fracking, you will come before the county again at the time to review specifics as far as if there's subsidence, how it's going to be designed and dealt with.
Sorry, Commissioner Louie, I hate to interrupt. We're having a hard time catching your voice on the mic, so if you can.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you.
So my question is, you're aware that you are going to come before the county again when the issue of specifically possible subsidence due to fracking or whatever reason there's subsidence, that you will come before and we will be required to seek approval?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And from an engineering standpoint, how does one deal with subsidence? Are there design engineering steps that you can take? Are you guys at this point tied into the bedrock? How are you going to comply?
Indeed, the foundations for the project will be rested upon what's called competent soil. It's not always bedrock, but it's called competent soil. The building like this indeed must rest on not sand, but indeed some very solid foundations and soils to support those loads. But I would point out additionally, just in the preliminary research that I've done on fracking, is that not only is subsidence a potential issue, but it has been shown to cause some tremors. And there's been examples of that in Oklahoma. But the tremors that are generated from fracking has been shown to be far less than a potential Southern California earthquake, which I know I experienced in the past here in Southern California. So today's codes that we have to adhere to strictly, and that the county will be sure that we do, has us designed for a much greater load, a potential serious California earthquake, which is much more significant than a small tremor associated with fracking.
So over the last 7-8 decades, there's been an evolution of the seismic codes. Would it be safe to say that being in this building, assuming it's built, would be the safest place to be in the event of an earthquake?
Well, we have to design for this site like any other project. We have to take each site individually, and we have to look very closely at the results of the testing that's already been done out there, and the recommendations by the geologist, who specifically recommend the types of foundations that'll be used, and all of which, again, the California Building Code is the best model code in the world, as far as I'm concerned, and the requirements will ensure a very, very high level of safety.
How far down is the bedrock?
I'm sorry. Well, I take that back. Actually, I think I know it not to be very deep at all. And again, not being the geologist of this project, I'm going from memory, it's not very deep at all. And fortunately, when we do dig down our 2 to 3 levels of subterranean, we are, what I do know about the geology report is that once we are digging down to achieve our parking levels, we will have removed any bad soil, and we will then be in competent soil at the base of the building at that point.
As the project butts up against the 6 homes, the renderings that we saw really looked at a massing where it was simply a wall. Will there be step backs there? Will there be landscaping to soften that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your statement.
In looking at the renderings that were presented to us where the 6 homes butt up against the project, what was presented was simply basically a massing showing a wall.
Yes.
Will there be buffering? Will there be setbacks on that side as well?
Yes, we have some setbacks, and we also have a very compatible 1-story cabana pool house structure along that side to help soften the transition between our building and that building. But indeed, we do have the upper level step back significantly on the upper level on that side. And in the middle courtyard, we took in the very middle of the project, we took the facade way inward and created a court on the middle part of the project, which is very, very significantly set back.
And just to repeat, if the property was developed with a commercial development by right and respecting the 35-foot limit, the 6 homes that are blocked would still be blocked with a 35-foot structure.
Without question. If there's a 1-story house built next to a 1-story home along that north side of the property, that new 1-story home would block the 1-story home. Is there a 2-story home? It would certainly block.
Okay. There was discussion about a 5% versus 10% for, I believe, either 120 or 140% income level. Is that something that's been agreed to? Is that satisfactory? Is that acceptable?
I haven't got I have to defer to my client to see where he is at with that proposal.
Mr. Quarles,
yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Initially, there was no requirement for affordable housing at all, and then we voluntarily decided that we would propose 5%. The county indicated they would like to see 10%. We haven't agreed to that just yet.
Okay. So in terms of community benefit, I mean, there's local hire that is acceptable to you?
Yes, we volunteered to do 25% local hire.
Okay. And a 5% rather than affordable, maybe moderate income might be a better description.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
You referred to it as affordable housing. It might be better classified as moderate income levels.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Workforce
housing, primarily, yes.
Okay.
Tina Fung again with the General Plan Development Housing section. Just to clarify, under both HUD and HCD calculation, moderate, it's considered 120% AMI, not 140% AMI.
Okay.
And so anything about 120%, the county does not monitor.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Quarles, do you own the property? Does your company own the property?
And we have an investor.
Okay.
We've owned the property for 10 years.
Okay. And the development strategy, do you typically hold the property or do you sell the property once it's been, well, I guess with the condominium, so there is no sale, but you will maintain the management of the property?
No, typically a homeowners association is brought in. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
There was a question raised about the sewage being 88 years. Can you address that? The sewer lines?
Well, the sewer is, we're taking the sewage from the commercial partial and tying into the county sewer going down La Brea. We should not be impacting sewer lines that are coming from the neighborhood. We're tying into the commercial sewer from the commercial parcel that's just north of us, tying into that line and going directly down La Brea.
Okay.
I'd like to just confirm one thing on the affordable housing angle, and that's just to confirm the mechanics. I think if I understand correctly, staff is recommending a 10% set aside, and there's been some confusion about, is it moderate income, is it workforce? I think we're calling workforce 140% of area median income. But I'm hearing that, and this is my understanding as well, that when we actually, the mechanics of this would be sort of like a covenant, and typically we're referring to state law and housing community HCD affordability levels, which go up to 120% AMI. So just to confirm, if the affordability is a piece of this and the 10% affordable housing, we would have covenants on those units that would cap the sale price at prices that are affordable to households making 120% of area median income?
As Tina said, since we don't monitor, the county doesn't monitor up beyond moderate, it's middle income, and we would just ask for a site plan to delineate which lots, or excuse me, which units would be deemed for middle income. I believe Jill has something else.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about and what I think the Housing Authority I heard would be recommending, if it is going to be affordable housing, it needs to be 120%. And then you're actually part of a monitoring program, and there need to be conditions, which I don't believe are in there right now.
And then along those lines, I think we're talking about units that are set aside at a particular price point, but we're talking about condos, we're talking about for sale units. So there becomes the question when the initial occupant then wants to sell. And I think, we have different programs. We can do equity reshare where the county captures some of that to go back into affordable housing, but the initial occupant is also able to capture some of the equity that they build. Would you imagine that that's how this would play out?
Correct. And that is under the state density bonus law, and the mechanism is through the housing permit. Right. And CDC will have to agree with the language in the covenant and agreement, and CDC is in charge of monitoring the units for just the initial buyer. And the equity sharing that you point out is also correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. Commissioner Schell, do we have any questions at this point? I don't have any other questions for the applicant. I don't know if seeing no further questions at Commissioners, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to open it up for commission discussion at this point, which we've sort of begun, but we can continue.
I've been involved in real estate and development in the downtown area for the last 30 years. And I've watched the evolution of the supply side and the demand side. 30 years ago, there was nothing. Frankly, there were properties that we could not give away. There were vacancies that we could not fill. Many of you may remember the Unical station at Olympic and Figueroa, right up on the side of the building that had a big 76 ball. That property was available for $60 a square foot, and we couldn't find a buyer for it. Today, the property across the street sold for $800 a square foot. So there's an evolution and a cycle to real estate, and changes occur. And when I look back at my roots, they go back to Crenshaw and Coliseum. My family moved there in 1950. We were there to take some of the wood that they used to build the Crenshaw Shopping Center, Holiday Bowling Alley, O'Connor Lincoln Mercury. We remember when there was a Rouse Market, a Vons Market, and a Lucky's Market. So we've got a little bit of history there. We remember when the National Guard came in. I can remember throwing rocks into the Baldwin Hills Reservoir about a month before it broke. The families that we grew up with, the Becks, the Bowers, Houstons, they're all older now. I suspect that for many of you, I may have dated your grandmother or something. So we go back to 39th Street School, Dublin Avenue School, and Tom Bradley, all the same place, Audubon and Dorsey High School. And growing up in the Crenshaw Coliseum area, we always looked at the View Park, Windsor Hills, Ladera Heights as being where the rich folks lived. Sometimes it didn't smell good up there, but it was a place that we aspired to. And so when I got married and I wanted to move that location, and the spouse-to-be suggested that we move to where her family was, we compromised and moved where her family was. So I have very fond memories of the community, and I respect and recognize that there's an evolution that occurs and changes do occur. I appreciate very much the participation of this community to come forward and express your thoughts. There was some elected official that had a vision for empowerment. And I think this is maybe the best demonstration of that, to come forward and share with us your thoughts and your vision. Based on my position at the Regional Planning Commission, looking at the request for a conditional use permit for waiver of the height limit, the setbacks, recognizing that the seismic issues, the fracking, I believe are being addressed and that they will be taken care of, that there has been an adequate and appropriate study of the traffic, and looking at the need for housing at a moderate income level. You know, I'm supportive of the project as proposed. I think we need to resolve the issue of 5% versus 10%. But if there is no resolution, Mr. Jones, if there's not an ability to reconcile that, I'm comfortable with the community benefit at 5%. So if there are no other comments.
Just to clarify, so are you proposing the 5%, or are we opening up a conversation for 5 versus 10?
I would ask Mr. Jones, if has there been any further discussion, 5% versus 10%? Would you still approve the project at 5%? Would your staff report still propose?
Staff report is proposing 5% of 5 or 10% program. That's up to
Yeah, and I wasn't clear what the staff recommendation was, because I saw conditions and findings, one of which said 5% and another which said 10%. So
with this morning's information, we did clarify that we're recommending 10% at the applicant's level of middle, 140, but in order to monitor, we need to bring that down to 120%. So it's up to the commission, obviously, but we would work with 5% at 120 in order to have the housing permit and monitor.
So at 120, 5%, the staff report would still be moving to approve.
Right, and we would have to clarify that condition, assuming that's what you propose. We'd also need CDC, the housing authority's feedback to ensure that we have the proper language in there for monitoring.
Okay, so beyond modifying the staff report to reflect that, is there anything that we need to do time-wise? Can we move forward on this motion today?
Yes, as long as we have sufficient clarity that it would be 5% of 120 AMI with directions to enter into an affordable housing program with the housing authority, because that does have certain monitoring fees.
Okay. With all that being said, I move that the Regional Planning Commission close the public hearing and adopt the mitigated negative declaration and adopt. The mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project pursuant to state and local CEQA guidelines.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? One opposed.
Further, I move that the Regional Planning Commission approve vesting tentative tract map number 073082 and conditional use permit number 20150052, subject to the attached findings and conditions, with clarification that we are looking at 120%, 5%, and with the acceptance and approval of an affordable housing program.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
The motion has 3 votes in favor, 1 opposed, and the motion carries. So thank you all.
Yes, this action may be appealed to the Board of Supervisors, and the last day to file such an appeal is Monday, August 14th.
Thank you all again for your time and your patience and for being here with us and expressing all of your visions and concerns. We have a couple more items to get through, so if folks can make their way out as quietly as possible. We need to get through a couple more items on our agenda, so thank you all for your understanding and patience. Thank you all. All right, we have just a couple more items to get through here, folks. So we're going to move on now to item number 7 on our agenda. That's public comment. Do we have any public comment cards? No speakers. Call for review. I'm seeing none. Any additional reports? I'm also seeing none. So with that, we are adjourned to 9 a.m. Wednesday, August 9, 2017. Thank you all.